I would say we should have a plan, in place by May. There's no reason not to.
Yeah.
And that if people are interested, let us know. I think that'll work.
I know. Well, I came the night before, so last night was better than the first night. And like that's why I ordered the other. Because the first night
Next to me, although we're spread out.
You do, I know you told me that. I was so bad at it. I'm the best.
So here's the thing.
Oh.
I don't know if there's anything you want to do with it. Not today. I just,
Thank you.
I don't need it. But if you think that there's something free that could be tied to maybe. But I. And if this people, he doesn't sign it. He doesn't sign it. You don't sign things. You gotta pay it. You gotta pay him. You gotta pay him $30. It's like, well, just wait till he comes off the station.
That's
Somebody did one for us.
Oh, you got multiple.
One for Jack.
You just sort of.
And I came home and we get some pictures. You can buy these kind of time.
Yeah.
If you think
I
you can
didn't
come
know
up
that.
with something.
Yeah, that's. Yeah. So I shouldn't go play basketball with them?
You could, yeah.
Because I used to, you know.
Magic Johnson. I had an idea of getting these people to know.
Dramatic.
So, sounds like opportunity. Just want to make sure we're on the same
Okay.
page.
And then.
No, we don't think for the moment. It seems like it's a little. Don't I say that? So I'm gonna introduce. Yeah, that's like so when executive session. You and I are gonna stay. And we're talking. You've got a lot of.
It's just to play.
And then we should go into the discussion. First of all, we're still there. And then.
But if you're not lit up, you're good. You're good. We don't want to bill around. Organization.
With the idea that you want to move away from the. How will we move it broaden this? I really like.
It's very. I think
It's your way of.
No, I'm gonna get. I will not be.
That is.
We missed you.
You're about 30%.
No, we're. I got a tally of last night.
Thank you, Janelle. I saw you raise a pound. You got to tell me what I said.
Very well. Very well. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much.
Are we going to try?
Everyone, if we could have everybody come to the tables, get your last cup of coffee.
Hi, good morning. I do too.
Mics are hot. In a second, I'm gonna make this hot too, so the 3 bells be hot all the time. If you want to talk, they press the button.
Mute,
That's,
right?
no, that's hot. That's hot. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I came to NSLA last year, just speaks to the mix. And it was us and Cody saying that actually made the trip to DC.
other states like met up in their state to watch like virtually. I was glad that we got. The event was still working, like the teaching and stuff was still working. So. Yes.
That's night. Nikki and I are talking. We come up. So I like walk. It was Governor.
None for now. I'll get some later, but thank you.
Yeah. Right.
But it's sort of that way.
And I
Did
hear
you see
that
her? She was like
you'll be
very tall.
hosting
So
some
like,
of the new
maybe.
Democratic governors.
I will. I think just about all of the new ones except Hawaii.
Okay. Arizona and I work with Congress, which would be pretty plugged in. I just want to know that. Yes. I know she has her hands full. I mean, there's, she's walking into 13 years. A lot of stuff that she's gonna have to
Yeah.
point new people to, but she's very enthusiastic. So I work with her in the house and.
And then find and then Gregor's
Very responsive. Some of the children's.
Well, I'll certainly be speaking with Kate. Probably gradually. I'll be speaking with us.
Good morning, everybody. One more time. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Team. We've got a lot to cover today. No surprise. We are going to try to get started promptly here. We've got a luncheon at the other end with a couple of hundred of our student officers at the local, state, and of course, national level. I did want to be sure, I mean, you all saw our national officers last evening. If you weren't impressed, let's look again one more time because they did such a wonderful job last night. They're And I will say this to completely embarrass them, but every single person that came up to me said, "Where did you find these young people?" And I said, we went straight to heaven and they just came directly from there. So I want to they're going to go and get ready for the luncheon event, which they will run as they did last night. But let me just note behind me here, Lauren Howard. Lauren, if you'll.
Oh, yeah, you said forward, Lauren.
Yeah. Who is the National Career Association Secretary from Little Rock, Arkansas. Charlie Garcia, who is the NCA parliamentarian, which Congressman Beyer, if you need a parliamentarian in the Congress, when you got the right guy for you. And he's in Blackhawk Community College in Illinois on his way to be an engineer. So stay tuned for that. And then we have Kira Canada, who is from in Iowa and is our president-elect. So what we have set up here is that she has had in effect a year of preparation. So when she takes over as president in April, she will have all that background, and the next president-elect will be chosen by the students for the following year. And then our president from Cloud County Community College in Kansas, the first president ever of the National Career Association, is Raya Klima. So these folks have been faithfully representing those tens of thousands of young people across the country. They're the face that so many have seen of who is Jobs for America's Graduates. So To be completely honest, we said or did nothing. We let the students choose. Each of them had to give their speeches in a competitive races. And these were selected, and we just thought the delegates did a great job with that selection. So thank you all very much, and we'll put you back to work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Don't want to leave home without them. So we've got a lot to do. As you can see, we've got some of our board members joining us by Zoom. This meeting is being live streamed so that some of our staff around the country, some of the state affiliate leaders who couldn't be here, some of our funders could participate in the board meeting. When we get to the executive session, we will of course discontinue the live stream, and we'll ask everybody to take a break while the board continues on in that executive session. I think I can safely announce that we raised some money last night. Thank you all very much for your contributions and your support. We'll be tallying that up, but it was a fun evening, and I will compliment Governor Bryan. Those were skills I guess I didn't know that he had, because he, in fact, we may put him back on the road, just traveling around the country, just raising money for JAG. I know we're going to lose Governor Parson and the First Lady at about late morning as they head to the airport. I think at the luncheon, Governor Edwards and Governor Bryan will be with us. The Congresswoman Miller Meeks is planning to join us after one of the meetings up on the Hill. Among the virtues of this hotel is its proximity to the Hill. I can see Congressman Byer nodding vigorously. They do have a whole bunch of things on the agenda. As you know, the lame duck session is in place, and so the congressman will have to leave us at about 9 o'clock or so. Trying to think here if there's let me introduce Jenna Kent. Jenna, there she is. Jenna is the vice president for global policy for McDonald's. You may recall our great friend Myrna Bell has retired from McDonald's, and the company has proposed Jenna to us, and we're thrilled with her. She brings all those government affairs experience, and she's here in Washington. So she's kicking our tires today to have a chance to get a running head start. Sometime next week, we will be formally nominating her with all the background information for her election to the board. So we're delighted to have you with us, Jenna. There's some sort of McDonald's gold card. Is there some special? We've just got it all. Well, Myrna gave one to Governor Holcomb when he was our chair, because the governor's quite a fan. So anyway, and again, just to recall at the luncheon, these are elected officers, and deliberately a smaller group to allow us to focus on developing their skills as officers, compared to our now new career development conference that'll be in April, when all young people who can get there can participate in competitive events, etc. I think Jennifer Cunningham is representing Jennifer Weber from ADM, who simply couldn't be with us. Jennifer was with us to those who were in the New Orleans meeting this summer. So we're delighted to have her with us and representing. And I think covered all the bases. Let me, is Austin here? Right here. So let me call out Austin Plotz and his colleagues from King and Spalding. They are our pro bono counsel. I will tell you, we put them through their paces this year. All the governance issues that we dealt with in June, and the ones we will be presenting to you today are all the product of their help. So I wanted to particularly call out King and Spalding for doing some really terrific work. I don't know they quite realize what we meant by pro bono counsel when we signed them up, but it's been very helpful with multiple. So thank you very much. And I think with that, Governor, I think we are ready to go. We'll find a time for maybe a quick 10-minute break. We know everybody's got either emails to take and whatnot. It is our hope to conclude the meeting at 11:30, 11:40 with the idea of getting to the luncheon, which of course is 100 yards from us. So it's not a long hike.
Thank you, Ken. Good morning, everybody. It is great to be back in person and in large numbers. And I want to thank all of you who attended the gala last evening. This is an important board meeting. They're all important. But I think when you see the agenda that we have today, the decisions that we're going to make, especially as it relates to our work in 2023 and setting us up for success for the next 4 decades. I think this is an especially important meeting. 40 years of success in serving 1.7 million young people in thousands of locations. And that's what we celebrated last evening. We highlighted the national officers, as you know, and several alumni as the real life faces representative of those 1.7 million individuals that we've served. And we recognize those who've come before us.
It's on.
Okay.
There you go.
Last night and now today, we're going to look at the urgent needs of young people across the country. And I can confirm real quickly what Ken and some others said last night. The pandemic just really threw a curveball at young people everywhere. And that's certainly the case in the state of Louisiana. Real quickly, we had the 3rd or 4th most in-person learning throughout the pandemic, and we still had tremendous learning loss. We had a lot of students who left our schools, and we're still looking for some of them. I mean, it is a real challenge, but it's precisely the kinds of things that JAG can be very helpful with in reaching these young people, getting them re-engaged, recovering that learning loss. And so that's why I was a fan of JAG, obviously, before the pandemic, but I am even more a fan, and I see how urgent JAG is for our state and for states around the country. Last night, you had to be impressed with the voices that you heard. Some of those alumni are going to be with us today. You can have the opportunity to visit with them and learn more about their experience and their inspiring stories, how they've resulted in lives and careers and success that I think we can all be proud of. And then I think it also highlighted how wide-ranging the impact of JAG has been on the lives of these young people. But when we do that for a young person, that is an entire family that is benefited. And in many cases, you can break that cycle of intergenerational challenges. And that's one of the things that is the strongest. And then they serve as an example to other family members and friends and peers across their communities. So there's a couple of observations that come to mind as we start this meeting. First, this year and over the next 40 years, we're going to be held to some very high expectations, especially by the young people who placed a good part of their futures into the hands of our job specialists and our affiliates at the front lines. And secondly, how fortunate we are to have leaders like Governor Kim Reynolds and Governor Albert Bryan to help us in 2023 to start as we go to the next level of success. If you don't know Governor Reynolds, I will tell you she is a fantastic leader. She serves as chair of the board of JAG when she was lieutenant governor in Iowa, and she did that for many years. And so she was involved with JAG even before that. Since she took office, JAG has actually tripled to 150 schools. She's committed to reaching at least 300 schools during her new term in office. And I'm equally excited that Governor Bryan has agreed to serve as vice chair. As some of you may recall, he was actually the state affiliate leader for JAG Virgin Islands. When he served as Commissioner of Labor, he actually led the implementation of the JAG program in the islands, and he's remained deeply involved in the program since becoming governor. And he plans to double the scale of the JAG program in the Virgin Islands to reach every high school in the territory and to get into the middle schools as well. So Governor Reynolds and Governor Bryan have something else in common. They were reelected a couple of weeks ago in overwhelming landslides. So congratulations. Governor Bryan won by the largest margin in the history of the Virgin Islands in an election for governor. And I think that speaks volumes for how the people in the Virgin Islands feel about you and your leadership. And I'm excited about both of them and look forward to working with them over the remaining 13 months or so that I have as governor of Louisiana. I won by 12 points the first time and by about 2 points the second time. But a win is a win, I think. Yeah. I think that's really strong evidence of how nonpartisan, bipartisan, however you want to put it, JAG really is. I still think it's the case that we have more governors on the board of directors than any other organization in the country. And you can just look at that and you can see, and I'm going to be hosting 19 Democratic governors and governors-elect in New Orleans this weekend. And you can rest assured that I'll be speaking to all of them, especially the governors-elect, about JAG, because we have some governors-elects in states that haven't had JAG before, and I'll be working with this as well. And I think all of our governor board members, with the exception of one, was reelected. So I congratulate each and every one of them. So Ken and Janelle have seen to it that Governor Bryan, who will join me in that outreach, by the way, to Democratic governors, are well equipped with multiple assignments. We know exactly what's going on in each of these states in terms of their JAG or whether it's not going on, and we're going to be talking to them. Governor Reynolds will be doing the same thing among Republican governors as well. Today, we're going to make some major decisions. Our goals and objectives for 2023 is outlined in the plan of work that was provided to you in preparation for the meeting. After months of work by our state affiliates under the leadership of Janelle and the national team and the executive committee's review and recommendation of the plan, it really is ready for our decision. And the proposed new approach to the 2023 budget. It's a little different than any budget that I've certainly seen for JAG, and I think it's necessary given the uncertainty. I mean, things are crazy out there right now. I'm going to highlight it this way. We have the lowest unemployment in the history of our state right now. And each of the last 5 months, we've set a new record. But the Fed is working against us because they want to soften the labor market. And so you know it's going to have to kick in at some point. And I think it's kind of those same concerns. It's not necessarily what's happening today. It's what most economists believe is going to play out over the coming months and years. And then all of a sudden yesterday, you see that the economy grew faster in the United States last quarter than anybody predicted was possible. So I don't know. I've sort of given up on guessing. We just take things as they come. But there are some folks out there who are really concerned about it in the private sector. Is not that we're not in the public sector, and they're starting to sort of hedge. And so we don't know that some of our supporters are going to be as generous going forward in the near term as they have been in the past. So I think it requires additional flexibility in the way that we're going to budget, given those uncertainties. But the executive committee has fully vetted and unanimously recommended both the plan and the budget for our approval. In addition, we're also going to have a number of other issues to address, including review and action on a final governance package to complete the process of bringing our governance structure up to date and in keeping with the best practices of national nonprofit organizations. And then the fundraising plan for 2023. that we will need all of us to make a commitment to if we're going to raise the money that we have to deliver JAG, to keep reaching those young people and creating those success stories. We're going to have two very intriguing presentations. The first will be by Stephen Morey, president of the Strata Education Network. I've known Stephen for a very long time. I've seen his work firsthand in Louisiana, where he was a leader on workforce issues, but also on economic development issues. And through the good work of Ed Schmidt of the Strata Board, who also serves on the JAG board, we've been pleased to receive regular updates on Strata's goals and objectives. And because Stephen's going to have to leave relatively early, he's going to speak soon. The second presentation will be by Gail Manchin, the federal co-chair of the Appalachian Regional Commission, who was appointed by the president and confirmed by the Senate this year. She is a great friend of ours and of JAG. The ARC covers 13 states and more than 400 of the poorest counties in America. And while I'm not personally familiar with ARC, we have the Delta Regional Association, the DRA, that works in most of the parishes in Louisiana. Y'all know we don't have counties, so I'm very familiar with the type of work that they do. The commission is very focused on workforce development and economic opportunity in the region, where some of our affiliates partnered with them at the state and local levels over a number of years. And as we formally begin the meeting, let me note that we're so happy to have so many board members with us in person and some virtually. This meeting is being live streamed, so representatives of our state affiliates, funders, and friends who could not be here can join us. When we do go into our executive session, obviously, we will put the live stream on hold for that part of the session. We'll ask some people to leave, go take a break and that sort of stuff. And then we'll try to move through that executive session as quickly as we can, but cover some important topics as well. And everyone who's not a board member will be excused. And then the live stream will be reconnected after the executive session ends. And then we're going to wind up the meeting, hopefully no later than 11:45, because we have a luncheon to get to. And the young officers that you met last night and saw again this morning, they're up getting ready for that luncheon now. And so we know that that's going to be very important for us as well. And that's actually the National Student Leadership Academy opening luncheon, where we're going to have even more opportunities to interact with young people. At our individual luncheon tables, each of us will get to hear firsthand about the challenges and opportunities in the schools, the communities, and the lives of JAG's young people, and the opportunity JAG has to help overcome those challenges and create even more opportunity. The JAG Career Association really has proven to be one of the most valuable assets in motivating and engaging our young people and supporting their preparation for work, post-secondary education, and obviously for life. Today's luncheon will open this year's National Student Leadership Academy, which is carefully aimed at nearly 200 of the elected state and local officers of the career associations. And our goals for the participating student officers over the next 3 days will be all about developing and growing their leadership and management skills in the student organization and learning how to motivate, engage with, and increase the range of opportunities for young people participating in the JAG Career Association in their schools and at the state level. Okay. In short, you're going to be having lunch with the current and future leaders of JAG, and we have evidence that some of them will become future leaders of the country. Two great examples are actually on our board already. Anna Tovar and Clarence Mingo, who are with us today. They're going to tell you that the Career Association was where they began their political careers. It helped prepare them for success in elected office. And the JAG Career Association encouraged many other JAG students to run for election to school boards, city councils, state legislatures, you name it. And dozens of them serve in office today. So the time we're going to have to cover all of these things will be fairly tight. The number of given the number of topics we have to discuss, the decisions we're going to have to make. So what I'm going to do now is invite Stephen Morey to brief us on the plans of the Strata Education Network and why they have decided that the goals that they've chosen are the best use of their organizational and institutional assets and the specific initiatives that they'll be undertaking to accomplish their mission. So on behalf of our board and the affiliates that Strata supports, we thank you, Stephen, for your confidence and support and for Strata's investments in JAG over many years. And the investments that Strata's made in 6 of our state affiliates have paid remarkable and continuing dividends by helping us to bring the great success story of JAG to more young people and expand the services and help that we can provide to them. And we're especially proud that while the rest of the country has experienced a 10 to 15% decline in post-secondary enrollments for the last 2 years, JAG has been able to increase enrollments this past year by almost 15%, from 40% to 46% enrolled in post-secondary education at the end of the 12 months of follow-up service. So, Stephen.
Great. Thank you, Governor. It's a great pleasure to be here. I remember meeting Ken Smith and getting to know JAG, I think roughly a decade ago when I was serving as Secretary of Economic Development in the state of Louisiana. It's great to see so many good friends today. I think in particular, Governor, I've appreciated so much the authentic leadership that you have provided for my great home state of Louisiana. Haven't been there during most of your tenure, but I've appreciated so much the work that you've done. We're going to miss you in that office. And you've only got 13 months left. So thank you so much for that. Also, just want to say hello to Eileen Fillercorn, who was a wonderful partner as a speaker in the Commonwealth, my adopted home state, the Commonwealth of Virginia. By the way, I can't help but say this, Louisiana is the only state in the country that has parishes instead of counties. There's kind of a similarity between Louisiana and Virginia in that people might say, what's the difference between a parish and a county? It's exactly the same, only a little better. There's only 4 commonwealths in the United States. Virginia is one of those, and I think of it sort of the same way. It's just like a state, but a little better than a regular state. Also wonderful to have our board member, Ed Schmidt, here. Ed was the first board member I really got to know well at Strata, and it's been a wonderful privilege to serve that organization since January of this year. Congratulations, Ken, and to all of you on 40 years. I mean, wow, what a successful run. Thank you so much for the impact you've had on the lives of millions of young Americans in our country. I'm going to share with you just a little bit about the future of Strata. We've had a great experience this year with our board working on a new vision for the future. And if you sort of go to the next slide there, we developed a new North Star. I'm sorry, I got cut off there a little bit, but it's really to collaborate with learners, educators, employers, and policymakers across the country to help bring to life a post-secondary education and training ecosystem that provides equitable pathways to opportunity. I grew up the son of a single mother in rural Mississippi, and while we were never legally poor, there was always a sense of economic insecurity when I was growing up. And for me, higher education was this promise of a better life, a more economically secure, economically mobile life. And so my work at Strata is not just something that I'm committed to kind of from an intellectual or professional perspective, but it's something that has deep personal meaning to me as well. And thinking about how we can help millions more Americans to get to a better place through some form of post-secondary education training. And so we spent a lot of time this year really thinking about how do we get there. Let me talk about challenges for just a moment. If you go to the next slide, just a few things I want to highlight that are going on in the country right now. Last time I checked, we have about 30 million full-time employed adults in the United States that make less than $35,000 a year. 30 million. These are full-time employed Americans. There's a big, big gap for us to address. And while unemployment rates are low, there's a lot of things to feel good about with the health of the economy. There's an awful lot of people that are getting left behind. And I know that's the work that we're all interested in improving on. If you go to the next slide, the other thing, we don't like to talk about this a lot, but there's a lot of underemployment in the United States as well. Again, last time I ran the numbers, about 10 million full-time employed adults with a bachelor's degree or higher not working in a college level occupation. 10 million American adults working full-time, underemployed. And the vast majority of those folks are not experiencing a meaningful earnings premium, if you will, that we typically talk about associated with college. Next slide. There's also a very significant skills gap in the country. I think the governor hit on this a little bit. We've got, the last time I checked, it was more than 10 million job openings, 6 million job seekers. This really funny mismatch that's there where we have a lot of businesses are having trouble meeting their talent needs, but at the same time, we've got millions of Americans that are having trouble getting good employment, getting mobility. These are the types of problems that we are focused on at Strata and working to address. And what we've done this year, if you go to the next slide, is to really say, what are the big things that we could do to help millions more people to get to a better place? We looked at all the different research that we've done, that others have done, and so forth. And we really think it comes down to five big opportunities, five strategic pillars, if you will. The first one we call clear outcomes. We believe that anyone who considers a post-secondary education or training program should have good information about the outcomes they could reasonably expect to achieve from that. There's a lot of gaps in the system today. We want to try to help close those gaps. There are three key practices that we view as helping create equitable pathways to opportunity. One is quality coaching and navigation. Most people don't have access to that in either K-12 or in higher education today in the United States. And that's particularly concerning for those that are coming from more low income or more challenging backgrounds. Affordability of post-secondary education and training. You know, one of the greatest challenges in our country, really in the world right now, is this huge cost burden that people are facing in trying to pursue some type of post-secondary education. Fourth is work-based learning opportunities. Most students who complete a bachelor's degree in the country do not have a single paid internship before they complete. I mean, just think about the implications of that in trying to have a successful launch into the labor market. And finally, employer alignment. While we're certainly focused first and foremost on helping those individuals that face the greatest challenges, we also need to meet the talent needs of business, right? If we're going to be competitive as a country. So we're thinking about things like, how do we create the incentives for higher education to be more responsive to the talent needs of employers? And then also, how do we encourage employers to be a little bit less focused on credentials and more on the capabilities and skills that people bring to the table, which would both help them to expand the talent pipeline as well as make it a more equitable talent pipeline as well. This is a one slide sort of summary of a couple hundred pages of our strategic plan. But under each of these five strategic pillars, we have several different initiatives that we're going to be pursuing to really bring this vision to life. This is going to be an ambitious program that we're going to be doing over several years. We'll be working with lots of partners across the country to bring this to life. Certainly looking forward to our continuing relationship with JAG. And you've got a significant grant from Strata right now that's underway. And just want to say thank you for the partnership that we've had. Thank you for the partnership with Strata. JAG has been certainly one of our top 5 or so partners over the last several years. Very grateful for that. Grateful for what all of you have done to help make this organization successful. Ken, I didn't know, I'm certainly happy to take a question or two if there are any questions, but mostly just want to say thank you and congratulations to you.
Well, thank you, Stephen. That was very helpful. And anybody that can boil down 200 pages to a slide, we may send our stuff off to you as well. So, you know, arguably, we're a perfect fit on every stage. We're all about career navigation. That's what these job specialists do at the front lines. We're all about workforce development. We're all about persistence in post-secondary education, finding the right avenue. Is it in person? Is it online? Is it hybrid? Is it a credential? So I like to believe that we are there and hopefully avoiding the circumstances that you've highlighted here of so many young Americans who have some college, but no credential or no degree. And so the persistence rate, as probably most of you know, that 60% of people who drop out of higher education drop out in the first year. That is the crisis point. And that's particularly true for first generation, which is why our 12 months of support helps to assure these young men and women will persist in getting to where they wanted to go. So we'll be ready to partner at any point that you're ready. So maybe open it up. Is there a question or two? And then we'll move to the next presentation.
That's a very intriguing report and really provocative. I'm wondering if one of the things that we worked on so really intensely was staying in touch with students during the pandemic. And a lot of college students lost touch with the resources at their universities. So Is there a way to kind of target those students, those graduates who didn't get the benefit of counseling and probably work-based learning during the pandemic? Might they be a subset of a really important strategic population?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. I think one of the one of the biggest opportunities that's out there, I think, is looking at folks who got started, but somehow sort of fell away, didn't complete. There's some really exciting work right now that the National Student Clearinghouse is doing on that very topic, because they can kind of track where everyone, has gotten to over time. You may be familiar with the initiative, national initiative called 110. Which is focused on helping, I think it's 10 million Black Americans to get better outcomes. That's actually going to be a pretty significant national pilot of exactly the idea, Sharon, that you just talked about. So if you follow up with us, we'd be happy to connect you with them, and they could share what they're doing. Yeah.
By the way, Stephen, she's on the State Board of Education in Kentucky. So I just wanted to give you a heads up.
Yeah. And Stephen, I have one for you as well, and you can help after today. So we have a master plan for higher education in Louisiana that by 2030, 60% of our adults will have a post-secondary degree or credential. But like you said in your introductory remarks, there are an awful lot of people who have the skills and knowledge, but they don't have that credential. And so how do we get that? Because as you know, to get 60% in Louisiana, we can't start with people who are in high school or college today. We've got to get people who left a long time ago, a formal education setting. But if we can get them connected to jobs and careers and success without getting the credential, because we can demonstrate they already have what they need to be successful, we can make a quantum leap without actually getting that 60% number. And if you could help us with Kim Hunter-Reid, who's leading that effort for us, that would be tremendous.
Yeah, Kim Hunter-Reid, the Commissioner of Higher Education in Louisiana, has actually been a good friend of mine for a long time, and a good friend of Strada as well. And Governor, you really hit on something. We're actually, one of the things that we're supporting nationally is an organization called Opportunity at Work. And their entire focus is on the exact issue that you raised. And it's basically that so many jobs in this country that clearly don't even require a college degree, they've included that as just kind of a screening device. And certainly it's helpful for those that have a degree, but there are millions of people that don't have a degree that could do the job just as well, that are kind of getting left out as a result of that. And what Opportunity at Work is doing is working with both private sector and public sector leaders to encourage them to kind of rethink the way that they go about recruiting talent. Likewise, you also hit on, governors, you think about states having higher levels of educational attainment. It turns out that when a person graduates, if they complete an associate degree or a bachelor's degree, we often like to think about that degree as preparing them for the fifth or seventh job. But it turns out for most people, the very first job that they get after they finish that credential is predictive of the rest of their career. And what I mean is, if you get a college level occupation, you will be in the college labor market the rest of your career. If you start off at Starbucks or some kind of underemployment type role, most of those folks actually never get into really a professional job. And so that's really why when we think about these things like coaching and work-based learning opportunities, making sure that people can successfully launch, right? Because we kind of make an assumption that everybody that gets that credential has a good outcome, but in fact, a sizable minority do not, right? So it's kind of working on both sides of the equation. Great question.
No, thank you. Anybody else? Well, Stephen, we thank you, and we thank all of your colleagues at Strada, and not just for the work that you're doing, although it's tremendous, but the partnership that you have with JAG.
Thank you, Governor. Good to see you. Good to see you.
Thank you. And as I mentioned, we have another very special guest with us here this morning, Gail Manchin, Sophie's grandmother. My son interned with Senator Manchin this year, and anyway, he had a great time. Gail has been a longstanding supporter of the work that Jobs for America's graduates and Jobs for West serves as the federal co-chair for the Appalachian Regional Commission. She's been appointed by President Biden and confirmed by the Senate. On her board are 13 governors. I can only imagine what that's like. Who work with Gail in overseeing the use of the resources provided by the commission to boost economic opportunity and success with a special priority on the most challenged and disadvantaged youth and adult populations and the counties in deepest poverty. And that obviously is where JAG fits in. And Gail has known JAG for a long time as Cabinet Secretary for the West Virginia Office of Education and the Arts and as board chair of the West Virginia Public Education Collaborative. And she rounded up a stray senator to bring to the gala last night. And so we appreciate her for doing that as well. And we thank her for support for sustaining West Virginia graduates as governor for his support of West Virginia and for sustaining the program in some difficult times. So again, we look very much forward to hearing your thoughts this morning and your guidance on the new direction for the commission and where JAG can help. Thank you very much. Good to see you. Thank you.
Well, I'm excited about the future of Appalachia because it's an up and coming area. We're gonna rock it.
Key within the work is developing partnerships and really attacking some of the challenges that we have on a regional level.
We need more people to be proud of being Appalachian. It's okay. This is where we're from, and we need to thrive off our identity and what our strengths are.
They better not bet against Appalachia because we are moving forward.
Going and finding out what everybody else's visions are, coalescing that into one cohesive and positive idea, and then executing it.
I'm excited to see towns that have so much going for them.
I think right now we're in a transitional period, but it's a ball of clay ready to be molded.
Thank you and good morning to everyone. I've often say a picture is worth 1,000 words, and I know that many of you in the room today may not be familiar with the Appalachian Regional Commission, since JAG certainly covers all 50 states of our union. But I believe that the Appalachian region and the Appalachian Regional Commission can play a very significant role in moving not only our region forward, but certainly in supporting JAG and the efforts that they make. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here this morning to talk to you a little bit about the commission, what we do, and how we do it. The video you saw sort of gives you a picture of our region, which unfortunately, you know, we often talk about telling our story. And I think through history, the Appalachian region has not done a real good job of telling our story. Other people have told lots of stories about, you know, dumb hillbillies and rednecks and, you know, people that are not educated. And unfortunately, I think we started believing other people's stories rather than writing and trusting our stories. And so we're trying to do a better job of telling the correct story, not only telling the correct story, but building on that story and making it a stronger, more important story, because we believe, and those of you that are from the Appalachian region, 13 states from southern New York to northern Mississippi, have been a great part of building this country. And we believe that we need to continue to be a big part of how we build our country to help us maintain our energy independence. But also, when you think about this region, is 423 counties, 26 million people. The only entity bigger than that in this country is California and Texas. And you think about when something happens in California or Texas, it sort of affects the country. And I believe that if the Appalachian region really acted more as a region, that we in turn could really have more of an effect on this country. And so as we have through history, we are a federal state partnership. That's the reason I'm called a federal co-chair. As mentioned, my 13 governors are my commissioners, and one of them each year serves as the state co-chair. So together, we lead and serve the Appalachian region. It was actually set up in statute that the way the ARC funds projects out into the region is it begins at a local level. You identify the problem, you bring your community together to figure out the solution, you create a plan, you have businesses come in, you have partners, you bring money to the table, and then you take that plan to the state. And the state agrees to that plan, they match your money, and then it comes to the ARC. So we become sort of the third leg of that stool. And usually our match then is what puts that project into motion. I think that was a brilliant plan. As I said, it's in statute. That's the way we operate. The federal ARC does not go into any community and hand them a check and say, here's how you fix the problem. Because we know that doesn't work. And what I have found as the ARC federal co-chair and visiting, I have been in all 12 states. I'm going to Alabama next week. Do we have anyone here from Alabama?
State superintendent.
All right. Well, I'm going to be in Alabama next week. That will be my 13th state I'm checking off. But what I have found, as you find all through the Appalachian region, that mountain region that runs through the eastern United States, is a culture, a heritage, a work ethic, pride, commitment. And so I see communities that are rebuilding. I'm visiting projects that we have been a partner in. And in addition to the pride and commitment, what you see is ownership. They own these projects because it's their project. And so that's why that's so important. As you can see, then collaboration has always been a big part of our conversation and how we can have better collaboration. Now, what I have found in my year and a half as the co-chair is that we have 13 states that have been writing wonderful grants, doing excellent projects in their state. West Virginia is the only state that's totally within the Appalachian region. The rest of the states are those counties that are a part of the mountain range. What I've found is you have 13 states writing great grants. And so what I have said to the 13 states, to the governors, is they did not name us the 13 states of Appalachia. What they named us was the Appalachian Regional Commission. And I believe it was intentional that they believed that as a mountain region, we would work together to lift up our region, to bring parity. The ARC came into being because when President Kennedy was campaigning in West Virginia in 1960, the belief was if he could convince West Virginia to vote for a Catholic for president, that he could win the country. And so he visited West Virginia 27 times during the campaign, and he was appalled at the poverty, the isolation. And what he said was a state cannot grow that does not have a highway system. And so he went back to Washington. He did win the election, and he started putting together what would become the ARC. And in doing so, what it was to bring parity, so that the Appalachian region, that area, would have parity with the rest of the country. And the initial mission was to build a highway system. Unfortunately, due to his assassination, he never was able to make that law, but President Johnson did enact it into law in 1965. And so since that time, we have been on this mission to create parity within this 423 counties. And we are about 91% complete on the highway system. We now have highways running through the mountains, not around the mountains. And certainly we have done a considerable amount of work in other areas, freshwater treatment plants, sewer treatment plants, workforce development, all of these things that you all talk about. It's about, you know, when we talk about workforce development, we're talking about people. Workforce development is not a thing. It's about people. And it is about training, making sure that our young people, I so appreciated your presentation. It is about training people for the jobs that are available or going to be available. And how do we do that? I don't think there has ever been a time in history that community colleges have not been more important. They're critical to right now, to not only making our young people in high schools aware of what is available, training that is needed, jobs that are available in the area, but people that have lost their jobs or for whatever reason have not been trained to be able to come into that system and be trained. I do know that across our country, not just our region, but across our country, that critical age between 18 and 25 is one of our lowest employed age groups. And that's tragic. And you talk about this. And so we want to make sure that that 18-year-old has a path, has a goal, a pathway to a good quality of life as he leaves high school. And for many of those young people, they could have an associate degree when they leave high school. They could be ready to enter the job force. People that, for whatever reason, did not get that opportunity in high school, community colleges have that flexibility of creating programs quickly to assist businesses, industry coming into the area. And so it's critical that these all work together. But I do want to say that since 1965, what the ARC has been able to do is we have cut poverty by more than half throughout the region. We have nearly tripled the amount of adults that have a high school diploma. But as we know, and Ken knows, and all of you in this room that are with JAG knows, there is still so much work to be done. And so I'm here today really to talk to you about Arise, which is a brand new initiative. It sort of builds where I started with in the beginning about how can we collaborate more. Now, I appreciated, Governor, when you said you work with 13 governors. Wow. So governors love to brag about their state.
Yeah.
How much money they brought into the state and how many programs they've created. And so now I'm telling 13 governors that I'd like for them to share. I'd like for them to not take all the credit, but to work together to make our projects bigger and better. We are at a moment in time right now. Every federal agency in this country has more money than it has ever had, which means we have more opportunities than we ever had. And for whom much is given, much is expected. I believe that those agencies, ARC included, who has been given a greater amount of money, it's because they believe in what we have done, but believe we can do it better and we can do it bigger. And so Arise is that opportunity. It is, I have put aside a block of money, about $80 million, to say if states will agree to work together I will give you money to plan how you're going to do it, and then I will give you money to implement that plan. Hoping that knowing, and governors understand this, if we lift up our region, if the Appalachian region, quality of life improves, job rates improve, all of our states will do better. And I believe that if the Appalachian region becomes stronger, our country will become stronger. But it starts at that base level. We know that every family, if you have a strong family, where there's education is important, that every one of those families builds a strong community. When you go in and look at data, you show me a community where education is important, where it's stressed, where the people in that town have not necessarily four-year degrees or PhDs, but an education that qualifies them for a good job, a good quality of life, a good paying job. You will find a vibrant economy, a vibrant community. And if you have vibrant communities all over your state, you've got a strong state. And so we want to do that state by state. I work in 13 states, but I am encouraging anyone that is within this region. I think we can be a model. If you're not from one of those 13 states, think about what I've talked about in collaboration and how you can work better together and use us as a model for how things can be done in the area in which you live. It's just a real honor for me to be here today. I have the utmost admiration and respect for the JAG program, for what it has done, what it is doing, and what its vision for the future. And if we can be partners in any way, I am so happy to be a part of that and support it in any way I can. So I sort of open with that. If there are any questions or anything I can add, just please.
Thank you very much, Gail. Any questions?
People want to move their state into your region, is that? The Virgin Islands just raised their hand there.
Absolutely. And
They got mountains there.
thank you for that. I just one question. I can't remember the name of the book now, but I read this book about Appalachia and this gentleman who came out of it and renewed his life. But a lot of the things of him growing up in Appalachia were just like the Virgin Islands or any rural area. What are the real industries? I mean, like we used to have the third largest oil refinery in the Western Hemisphere, closed in 2012, reduced our population by 20%, decimated just our economy. What are some of the industries that you are looking to connect this? I know tourism is one, has to be. What are the real things that you're trying to bring to that region looking forward?
Well, obviously, the Appalachian region has always been noted for the coal industry. As I said earlier, we built this country with the energy that came out of the state of West Virginia that kept the lights on in this country. The timber that came out of West Virginia that built many of the cities across our country. We have water, we have wind, we have good soil. Things that we had lost in our region are coming back, like agriculture. Much of the manufacturing that not only left our region, but left this country is starting to come back. Mississippi is coming back very strong in furniture manufacturing, again, an industry that was kind of lost in our country for a few years, and that's coming back. Certainly looking at energy diversification, solar, hydrogen, nuclear. I believe that this region will always be a big energy part of our country. But as we transition from coal into other forms of energy, I think that our region will still be, that will be a major industry within our region.
Hillbilly Elegy, that was the name of the book. Really
Yeah.
good.
Anyone else? Well, Gail, thank you so much. We appreciate you being
Well,
here this
Thank
morning.
you, and thank all of you. Dinner last night was just so rewarding to see the young people up on the stage speaking with such confidence and clarity, and realizing the lives that this program touches every day. My background is education, and certainly have worked in some of the most impoverished, isolated areas of the country. And it is programs like this that lift children up, that put that special person in their lives that can make a difference. And you are a part of making that happen. So my heart and my appreciation goes out to each and every one of you for what you do every day. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Taylor. Thank you all for taking good care of John Miller.
Yeah.
Ken, I think we have a video now. Is that right?
We do.
So Governor Reynolds is on a long planned family vacation.
2 years in the planning, I was told.
And I can absolutely sympathize with that. I know how hard it is to plan these. And so we've got a video from her this morning.
Good evening. While I wish I could be with you in person to celebrate JAG's 40th anniversary, it's my pleasure to send a message of gratitude and appreciation for this remarkable organization. To all those who have devoted so much of their time, talent, and treasure to making the promise of Jobs for America's graduates possible, a heartfelt thank you. This is also an exciting time for me personally as I take up my responsibilities as the chair of the JAG Board of Directors. What an honor to be entrusted with JAG's future. As you'll see over the course of the evening, JAG demonstrates that leaders from both political parties, schools, the workforce system, employers, and private sector investors can achieve great things by working together and focusing on strategies that are truly effective. This approach has produced 40 successful years, including graduation rates of 90% or higher for JAG's entire history. It's brought hope, opportunity, and bottom line results to the young people of our nation by giving them the skills that they need to thrive in the modern economy. These solutions have been proven to work at scale and over time. Tonight's event is about celebrating this incredible record, but it's also a time to look ahead. Going forward, we're determined to build on all of the lessons that we've learned in 40 years, to bring this program to countless more young people while continuing to enhance the services that we offer. Our nation and its schools face some difficult challenges, but JAG has proven that it can be a key part of the nationwide solution. So I can't wait to get to work with you by my side. Thank you and enjoy this really special evening.
So that video, I think most of you were with us last night. I believe there is a second video that she wanted to just save for this audience in this moment before we move into the election process. I assured her that she did not need television commercials or bumper stickers to run for chair of the board of Jobs for America's graduates, but she promised that if we needed them, she had them ready. So. To those that are on the Zoom video, if you'll let Bobby know, putting up your hand, he's watching the screen. So if there's a question, obviously you can also try to interrupt, but just know we've got somebody watching the screen if somebody wants to raise their hand for a question or a comment. We will probably take a break just before the report of the president and the executive vice president, so that there'll be, but if we can possibly do a short break when we get there, we're going to try to do that. I hope when we go to Iowa, we get a chance to go to the governor's office. I think it's the biggest governor's office I've ever been in.
Good morning. I want to start by thanking everyone in this room for their unwavering commitment to JAG. It's thanks to you that we're celebrating 40 years of success, delivering JAG programming to more than 1.7 million youth. And it's clear that we have something very special here in Jobs for America's Graduates. I consider it one of the nation's really greatest success stories. You know, time and again, JAG has proven that it can help young people in need, and most importantly, it can do it at scale. And I've seen that firsthand in Iowa, where our state chapter continues to grow and excel. So it's with great enthusiasm and gratitude that I accept the chairmanship of this remarkable organization. I believe that the strategic priorities that this board approved last year will take JAG to the next level. You know, I recently had a great meeting in Des Moines with Janelle, and I am excited about the direction that JAG is taking. I'm especially impressed by JAG's commitment to expanding opportunities for dual enrollment for our students, and that's an area where Iowa proudly leads the nation. Securing certifications and credentials while students are still in high school gives them a head start in post-secondary education and opens pathways to good jobs in the communities where they live. I want to end by taking a moment to thank Governor Edwards for his incredible 3 years of service as chair of the board. Governor Edwards, you have led JAG through some of the most challenging times in its history, and we're so grateful for your service. I also want to thank Governor Albert Bryan of the Virgin Islands for agreeing to serve as my vice chair. We have some pretty big shoes to fill. However, we begin this journey with excitement for the work ahead of us as we invest in this country's greatest resource, and that's our youth. So thank you again for your commitment to JAG, and I look forward to working with each and every one of you in the coming year.
You'll notice twice today, Republicans have spoken well of Democrats, and Democrats have spoken well of Republicans. Where does it all end? I mean, anyway, special times.
It's easier for governors.
True.
It really is, but that's another story. We appreciate Governor Reynolds and her willingness to serve and the leadership that she bring to JAG. And I think it is time to get to the business portion.
I think our newest board member, Congresswoman Miller Meeks, is with us. She's, I don't know quite, you must have flying shoes because you were here back and forth. I mean, anyway, thank you for that and being with us last evening. The Congresswoman is a strong advocate of Jobs for Iowa Graduates, where she got to know the program. How many schools in your district? 8 or 10? There's quite a number, and her leadership and her commitment got us excited about having her join the board along with Congressman Beyer. So we're just thrilled that you're making this, and give you a couple of minutes about why you're with us.
You already gave a great explanation of why I am with you. You know, there are many different programs across the United States and throughout states that are addressing the lack we have both in education and preparation for young people into a career pathway. What some of them lack, and some of them are federal programs and some are other nonprofit programs, is accountability and outcomes. And one of the things I found very interesting in JAG and in iJAG is that there are true outcomes. So you have expectations of your students and of those with whom you're involved, and that includes everyone from the classroom level to your board. And I think that's one of the things that we look at. So as a physician, certainly I'm tuned to look at outcomes. As a public health director, as a lieutenant colonel in the military, you're looking for outcomes and accountability. And so my first introduction to JAG was actually my clerk when I was a state senator, who was an IJAG graduate in Ottumwa. And so that was my first intro, but I just have found that, the program, what you're doing, the level of accountability, the level of expectations, what young people do not need, they do not need a pass. I think probably one of the wisest statements I heard was from George Bush, and I remember this. So I'm from a family of 8 children. My father was in the Air Force, enlisted. My mom had gotten a GED. No one in my family had gone to college. And when I left home at 16 to find a pathway to become a doctor, I did that without resources, without networks, without mentors. But young people don't do that alone. But George Bush said, the soft bigotry of low expectations. We are in a global economy. Travel is instantaneous. The internet connects people all over the world. We cannot, as a country, reduce expectations or merit of our children. We cannot. It puts not only the United States at risk, but other countries at risk. So we have to have expectations of our children that they can rise to, because if you have no standard, if you have no expectations, you will surely fail. So I like that part of JAG. And then it's no small attraction that our governor, who is a great governor, is your incoming president. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Congresswoman. I know most of you appreciate this, but one of the great things we are so grateful for is so many people willing to share their reputations, both corporate and those in government. These days, that kind of commitment doesn't come easily. And I know there's actually been occasions when some on governor's staffs and members of the Congress say, you really think you want to do this? I mean, it's just one more point of exposure. Well, you can see around the table, the answer was yes. When Governor Edwards and I approached Governor Reynolds together to become the vice chair, this is almost like my Governor DuPont story. Most of her staff said, great program, it's really good. You've got too much to do, ma'am. And she said, but I love JAG. We're going to do it. But it's true. These folks have a lot to do. Governor Parson, First Lady, Governor Bryan, Governor Edwards, the congressman, congresswoman. I mean, it's just a remarkable commitment. So thank you.
Congresswoman, thank you so much for being with us this morning. And knowing what you all have before you right now on Capitol Hill, the fact that you're able to carve out some time for us, I think speaks volumes about your commitment to JAG. And you mentioned that your public health background. I have been joined at the hip with my public health department for the last however long it's been, and not something I ever expected to do as governor, but I will tell you, just tremendously important for our state and for states all around the country. So thank you so much for that too. Okay, so now I think we are ready to turn to the business portion of the meeting, and that starts with review and approval of the minutes of the June board meeting. And you all have the binder that has all of the information in it. And at this time, I would entertain a motion to adopt the minutes of the last meeting of the Board of Jobs for America's Graduates. It was held on June the 14th, 2022. Is there a motion? There is a motion. And is there a second? There is a second by Larry. Motion by John, second by Larry. Are there any questions, additions, or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor of adopting the minutes of the last board meeting, please say aye. Oh, we have a question. Oh, okay. Didn't want to jump to it if we had a question. So we've signified by saying aye. Any opposed? So the minutes from the last board meeting are approved. Next is the election of officers and directors. We'll elect directors for 3-year terms, officers of JAG for a 1-year term. Obviously, you know that Governor Kim Reynolds has agreed to become our chair for 2023 after our invitation to her was approved at the June board meeting, and we appreciate her continued commitment to JAG and IJAG, and including her leadership in bringing the JAG program to schools in the state, serving as our vice chair, and now as chair of the JAG board of directors that will begin on January the 1st of 2023. And she and I have, I think, worked effectively and made a great bipartisan team in outreach to other governors, but we also authored op-eds together and brought additional media attention to the work of JAG because we want to do a better job of telling our story. Because quite frankly, too few people around the country know who we are and what we do. And of course, we plan to do more together in 2023. And then let's see, Governor Bryan has agreed to become our vice chair, and he's been a decade-long leader of JAG Virgin Islands and Jobs for America's Graduates. And so, Governor Bryan, we thank you for your commitment to JAG, and again, we congratulate you on your reelection, and I would invite you to make some remarks.
Wow, I wasn't prepared for that. Good morning, everyone. Once again, I'd just like to say I am greatly honored to be an advocate for JAG and to be on this board. I was laughing to myself last night when Secretary Hubbard of Delaware for Labor got up on the stage. I was laughing, saying, you know, be careful about that Secretary of Labor thing. The next up is Governor of Delaware. So I hope she has.
Carol's right here.
I hope she has her election getting it ready. And I actually praised my first dollar from my election in 2014, right at the table at JAG. I think we're in Kansas or somewhere. Everyone around the table. I told them I was going to be governor. I wasn't going to run that year, but 4 years from now, I'd be back on the ballot. And everybody gave me $1. And to this day, I carry those dollars around with me. So JAG has been a great part of my success. I just like to say that, you know, I was here as a commissioner of labor in 2009 when we started JAG in the Virgin Islands. And the conversation was so different. But everybody was talking about this great talent deficit we would have in 2020 and how we wouldn't have anybody to work. And it's funny now that no one remembers that we actually predicted that the boomers would go home, there would be this tremendous skills gap, and we would just have this crisis. Well, we're living that crisis right now. And it's such a pendulum swing from where we were after or during the Great Recession, where we had all this talent and no jobs to put people in. I love what the Congresswoman said about standards and about working. I think one of the great challenges now is I have 2 young people, one in college, one just graduated, that they don't understand that success is difficult. They have this expectation that it's going to be easy. They only want to try once and they want it to work. I think that's a great push that we have to have. You know, well, one thing about JAG kids is that they've already had a hard time at life. They expect it to be difficult. They just have to find a way, and you show them a way. And what we've done in the Virgin Islands is we set up pathways to success. So every kid that graduates from a Virgin Island high school gets a free college education. And then out of college, we have a fellowship program that pays them $55,000 a year for a 2-year experience in the government. We have apprenticeship programs that allow them to participate in post-secondary training in vocational or other trades. And then also jobs that pay them to learn on the job, programs that pay them. Those are the kinds of things that young people need. They need to see a path forward. And we as advocates here on this board, you know, we need to be like viruses. Everywhere we go, not only take JAG, but they take the things that we learned are successful about JAG, measuring results, building resiliency, promoting young people, making them stronger, and the expectation that it's going to be difficult. So I really am proud to be on this board. Like I said last night, I feel like I've been drafted to a championship team. We have 10 rings already, and we're just going to get another one this year because we're so good at what we do. So thank you all for your vote of confidence. And I look forward to doing great work with JAG. Governor, only 1 year left, 13 months.
13 months.
We're gonna have to figure out some way to keep you involved. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our very special thanks also to Corporate Secretary Sharon Robinson and our Treasurer, Leslie Carter-Prawl, for their continued commitment to serve in 2023. And you can see that slate of officers in your binders as well. And so at this time, I would ask the floor if there are any other nominations for corporate officer positions. Hearing none, I will now entertain the motion to elect the proposed slate of officers for a new term of 1 year as usual. And we have a motion. Is there a second? I think there is. Thank you.
That motion was by Anna.
Yes.
Okay.
And Ed with the second.
Yep.
Are there any questions, comments, or additional nominees?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I have a clarification on this slate before us. So if Governor Bryant is going to be on this slate, does that mean he will be hosting a JAG event in the Virgin Islands? I want to be clear before I vote, kind of where we're headed with this right here on that. So if you can enlighten me on that later, maybe let me know.
Well, I can tell you that it's customary that when the vice chair becomes the chair, they certainly host a meeting, but we might want to jump ahead if there's an opportunity to jump ahead. But that's a great point, Governor. Appreciate that. So are there any other questions, comments, or additional nominees? Hearing none, all those in favor of electing this slate of officers for a new 1 year term, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So the officers are hereby elected for 2023, and I congratulate them and thank them for their service. And now we'll turn to the proposed slate of directors for new 3 year terms and re-electing them. All are longstanding members of the board, and we appreciate their commitment and their willingness to continue to serve. And those names are on the slate before you in the binder: Nate Bailey, myself, Governor Eric Holcomb, Nicole Poore, Governor Kim Reynolds, Scott Sanders, and Jennifer Weber. And now the floor is open for any additional nominations that you may have. If there are no further nominations, can I have a motion to re-elect the slate of directors for new 3 year terms? Thank you very much, Richard. Is there a second? There is a second. And are there any other questions, comments, or additional nominees? Hearing none, if you're in favor of re-electing the slate of directors for 3 year terms, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, those directors are hereby re-elected for new 3 year terms beginning January 1st, 2023. And again, we thank you so much for your service and your commitment to the work of JAG. And we look forward to working with all of you as we set the stage for 40 more years of even greater success. We will now have a report of the treasurer and the investment committee. Leslie Carter-Prawl, just recently reelected, executive vice president and head of private wealth management at Regions Financial Corporation, will present us with two very important reports. She serves both as treasurer and chair of the investment committee. She will first present the treasurer's report and then the investment committee report. And in that report will be the committee's recommendation of the investment parameters for 2023 for your consideration and action. So Leslie, thank you very much.
Thanks, Governor Edwards, and good morning, everyone. So I'll start with the treasurer's report, which is behind the tab that you have in your binder. And I think I'd summarize the treasurer's report in 2 words: timing and opportunity. So as you can see from the report, cash is down, And this is due in part, the timing of distributions, specifically the AT&T grant went out first quarter of 2022. And then in addition to that, delayed and or reduced funding contributions contributing to increased costs that we did budget for and we have approved previously. Our receivables are down too, but that's due in part really twofold. One is quicker collections of our receivables and also delayed or reduced funding, which we'll talk about in a little bit as well. Revenue is down from what we expected it to be, primarily for two key reasons. One is that reduced or delayed funding. We are waiting for some of our funders to finalize giving. And we also know that we've heard from some funders that they are planning to or need to reduce some of the funding as well. So there is there in terms of those receivables. Second is affiliation fees, and board, you'll recall discussion around that topic over the past year. We budgeted for a typical annual increase in those fees over the course of the year. And we're working to finalize that new fee structure with our affiliates. And we also decided that we would freeze fees. So we really aren't likely going to see, at least in this year, the increase in the fees that we budgeted for. So given the reduced revenue, we are running at a deficit of about $750,000. We expect some of that to be made up with some of the funding approvals that we have out and some potential new grants. So we're working hard to fill that gap. However, we want to make it clear to the board that we do see some headwinds relative to giving, given the economic environment and that kind of outlook as we head into early 23. I know we're going to discuss this a little bit later in the Resource Development Committee meeting, but I want to just make sure everyone understands really the urgency around that. We continue to need to grow and diversify our revenue streams and the sources of that revenue so that we're best positioned to not only face the current and potential future economic challenges that we may face now or even down the road, but also, as we've heard already this morning, we have our strategic goals that we've identified to really grow this organization to serve and meet more needs that we know exist across our young people out across the United States. So I'll conclude the Treasurer's report with those remarks, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Leslie. We will open the floor for questions.
Let me comment that we have a $1 million proposal pending with Boeing. We believe it will be approved, but it hasn't been approved. So you can see the swing factor here that we are hopeful it'll be approved in December, which will then, as Leslie describes, there's a couple of others that we think are going to happen. But these have come slower than what we had expected. We have a proposal into AT&T for the limit of 300,000 in the category that we are now in. As we mentioned in the June board meeting, that AT&T dramatically changed its focus on primarily around connectivity to populations in need and away from the workforce development role that they had played for many years. So corporate decision, to their everlasting credit, there is a happy category called friends and family. I think it's got a different title about the relationships that they have with organizations like ours, and there is up to a $300,000 allocation there, and we're pretty hopeful of that as well. So just to reinforce Leslie's points that we can see the money, but it's not here.
Any other questions? Yes, sir. Governor Parsons.
Jim, just a clarification. I guess on the first page of that, where it says October 31, 2021, we're at 6 million for cash assets, and today we're at 4.1. I believe, is that correct the way I'm reading that? And then, but I thought there were, I guess I didn't understand the 750,000 shortfall that was discussed just a few minutes ago.
Yeah, that's on a cash, but that's in terms of how we're doing on a cash flow basis. And so what essentially why there's that $2 million difference. Part of it is because we had $400,000 this time last year from AT&T to distribute in grants, and we did. But we won't have that again this year. So we provided those grants to our affiliates. And then secondly, it's just the difference between commitments. We haven't received them. So the net as of this month is we're running about a 750 deficit, which we hope to pick up. And this was as of October 31. We're a little better than that now, being at the end of November, but we may not get there unless these commitments come through.
Thank you.
Thanks, Governor.
Any other questions? Hearing none, is there a motion to adopt the treasurer's report? We do have a motion. Is there a second? Second. Any other questions, additions, corrections to the report? Hearing none, all those in favor of adopting the treasurer's report, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay, please. So the treasurer's report is approved. And so thank you, Leslie, and we'll now turn to the report of the investment committee, also presented by Leslie.
On behalf of the investment committee, I'm pleased to present our report. Again, you'll find it behind the treasurer's report tab and the treasurer's report itself. And again, this is a little bit outdated, just even in the last week, but during the past 5 months, as many of you know, the stock market continues to see a lot of volatility. It's prompted us to meet several additional times as a committee to really make sure we're prudent in our decisioning and how the investments are being managed. So we continue, and again, I thank the committee and Chris for extra time put in over these past several months. So we discussed in the June board meeting, for nearly 2 years, JAG has had a very conservative portfolio, really with the priority around capital preservation. That position has served us very well, and in particular over this current period. Again, we met urgently when there were really sharp downturns in the markets. And our advisor, Chris DeFatis with Morgan Stanley, he continues to provide really great guidance to us as we navigate the environment. I was actually talking with Chris before the event last night, and I asked him how long he had been doing this because he precedes me from my board time here. And Chris, I think you shared with me that you started managing the investments for JAG in the year 2000. And it's really a labor of love, I think, for Chris. I heard loud and clear from his comments because, to stick with this for that long and, we don't have $1 billion to manage. But he said he does it because he loves this organization and believes just how well run it is. And I think he comes to most of these meetings as well. So thank you, Chris.
Wave Chris and
Thank you, Chris.
So less than 25% of JAG's portfolio is in equities. I want to make that clear. The rest we hold in cash, including treasury bills and other near cash fixed income investments. And the committee through the rocky times has continued to maintain that approach and also kind of staying the course. approximately 50% of our portfolio remains in cash or near cash to really ensure that we have the liquidity we need to run our programs. And so we also decided to move part of that into treasury bills that are now paying more than 3%. If you've paid attention to the markets, fully guaranteed by the federal government to maintain that safety and soundness. Bottom line, we've managed, and we will continue to manage with heightened scrutiny and focus as we continue through these times. And make sure I don't want to repeat myself here. We do have $1.25 million available in cash currently, and that more than covers all of the expectations that we see. We're very sensitive to the uncertain economic environment and the grant revenues that may or may not be forthcoming to make sure that we can address any issues that we see in the short term. So our intention as a committee is to maintain that very conservative position in our investments for the foreseeable future, maintaining more than 50% of the resources immediately in some type of cash structure. We have built up unrealized gains of approximately 900,000, but I'd actually, in a day or a week doesn't make a trend. But we actually, as of this morning, I think, our portfolio year to date is down 4%, or about $200,000. So that difference is really from the latest report. So we will have an unrealized loss of approximately 200,000, or about 5% of our accounts since the beginning of the year. That compares to where the Dow is about 13% down, and S&P losses of about 16% same period. I would also tell you, in our industry and banking, we also kind of looked at nonprofits and where, just nonprofits in general are in terms of navigating the environment relative to their investment portfolios. And actually JAG has fared better than the nonprofit average. So again, thanks to Chris and his oversight and the committee as well. So finally, it's important on behalf of the committee to present the resolution for your approval. The resolution is not only for adopting the investment committee report, but also in keeping with the statement of investment policy adopted by the board nearly a year ago, which recommends for approval maintaining the same investment parameters we've used for the past 2 years. We believe those parameters have served us well and include the authority for us to liquidate as much or all of the accounts we deem necessary if circumstances would warrant it. So I'd like to repeat those parameters for you. That's a maximum of 50% in equities, a maximum of 50% in fixed income, maximum of 20% in cash, maximum of 10% in alternative investments, which would include any REITs, commodities, managed futures, hedging strategies. So therefore, Mr. Chairman, I'm recommending that we resolution authorizing JAG's investment parameters for 2023 be considered and approved by the board. And I'm happy to answer questions.
And again, those are parameters within which the committee is authorized. And you've heard the message. It has been a very conservative position, and absent some dramatic change, it will continue to be in a very conservative position.
Second motion.
So we have a motion and a second to adopt the investment committee report, which, Ken, as I understand it, is also an adoption of the resolution as well.
Yes.
Are there any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of adopting the investment committee report, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So the investment committee report and the resolution to maintain the current parameters within which the committee may allocate a portion of our reserves is approved.
Mr. Chairman, you will note in your packet that there is a report from Jim Duffy, who is on the line with us as chair of the Tax and Audit Committee. We didn't want to spend more than just a minute to note that it's there because Jim has reported to you after the Tax and Audit Committee met the proceeds, which you will see is happily another clean audit. And some nice commendations for the controls that the organization has in place. So I just wanted you to note that there was a report as there was previously in writing.
Thank you very much. And so we don't need to take it up for approval, but we appreciate the work of the Audit and Tax Committee. So now we get to a report of the Executive Committee, which all of you know is delegated act on behalf of the board between board meetings and has a number of other assignments as well. Tom has been a great leader of the committee for many years, assisted by Richard Walquist. And I tell you, they have devoted a lot of time and attention to this past year. I know all of us are very much appreciative for their great work. And so at this time, Tom.
Thank you, Governor. In the interest of time, I will note that the report is in the book and we are taking up most of the items that the executive committee considered over the last several months later in the meeting. That will include a recommendation on the plan of work, a recommendation for the budget, a recommendation relating to the nominating committee and the code of conduct. And in addition, we'll have some other items that we will discuss during the executive session.
Thank you very much, Tom. And I think we proceed now to a review and action on nominating committee and new code of conduct. That is the next item on our agenda, which is to create a nominating committee to nominate new board members in the future, as well as to consider adoption of a code of conduct. And the discussion will be led by Tom and Janelle on these two resolutions.
Thank you very much again, Governor. And I should have thanked the members of the executive committee who did a lot of work during the last several months. The committee members have been very responsive and that has been most helpful. Relating to the nominating committee, we discussed this issue at the last board meeting. We decided at that time that it was appropriate as we formalized some changes in our governance structure that we should have a nominating committee that would nominate members of the board and also members of the executive committee. And Janelle has done great work with our legal counsel in pulling this together. So let me turn it over to Janelle for an explanation.
Thank you, Tom. And our legal counsel, Austin, is here too, so I invite him to jump in at any time. But really the purpose of the nominating committee and the charter is to make sure that we're bringing folks to this board that can really support our strategic goals and work alongside all of us. So we will work on implementing this in the beginning of next year. And the initial slates of the committee will be guided by our incoming chair, Governor Kim Reynolds, who will appoint a chair of the committee and then working with the executive officers of the board nominate that first committee. So we are excited about having a little bit more structure, a little bit more governance to bring more members to this committee, and recommendations can come from the entire board and they will go and funnel through that committee. So more to come, and we will have that in place here, we believe, by the end of Q1.
So the bottom line is that we'll be moving to a nominating committee. As Janelle indicated, Governor Reynolds will be appoint the first members of the committee. That should occur very soon. And then the committee should be up and operating by the time of our spring board meeting. And if you are interested in serving on the nominating committee, assuming we adopt this charter, if you are interested in serving on the nominating committee, you should let Ken or Janelle or let me know, and we will try to gather the names of those interested and forward them to Governor Reynolds for her consideration.
Thank you, Janelle, and thank you, Tom. Are there any additional questions for them with respect to the nominating committee and the charter to guide it?
This is effectively because of, as we're tracking the changes in governance, as Tom mentioned, we went through the adoption of a change in the bylaws, you'll remember, and a number of other actions. This is part of completing that process. This is considered among the gold standards of operating national nonprofits is to have a nominating committee. So we're following that as part of this, bringing us up to date. And we are looking for enthusiastic volunteers.
All right, the chair will entertain a motion to adopt the resolution to create a nominating committee and the charter to guide it. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
There is. And is there a second?
Second.
Thank you very much. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of adopting the nominating committee and charter, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? The nominating committee and charter are adopted. The executive committee, incoming chair and incoming vice chair, will work out the process of establishing the committee. It'll work as Tom just mentioned. And I want to reiterate, anyone who has a willingness to serve on the committee should reach out to Tom, Janelle, or Ken. And now Tom will lead a discussion on the resolution on the new code of conduct.
Again, this is part of our effort to formalize some of the practices that we have had as a committee, but in order to ensure a more transparent and clear governance structure for the board and for the organization as a whole. We discussed the code of conduct in our last board meeting. At that time, there were some concerns raised about the implications for those who are serving in public office, as well as the implications for those who are corporate officers. And we didn't want to have anyone run into trouble, if you will, with their legal counsels in the corporations or in governor's offices as a result of the code of conduct. So we have streamlined it somewhat since our last board meeting. And I think we have come to a conclusion that is successfully meets the objectives of transparency on the one hand, and ensuring that we are all aware of any potential conflicts by board members. And on the other hand, avoiding unnecessary reporting and complications that could face those who are serving in public office or in corporate officer positions. So as you will see before us as a result, the code of ethics and conduct. Again, Janelle has done great work with our legal counsel in pulling this together. So Janelle, do you have any comments you wish to make?
I would just highlight that it was this time last year where we walked through and the board adopted our values as an organization. So you'll see in those that these are all built upon our values that were developed by the national team, consultation with the affiliate leadership. And, you know, if we follow these values, especially acting with integrity, I think you'll find that the rest of the code of ethics and conduct really follow that value. And then in the end, you'll see that the executive team, the executive committee is here to support anyone who would want to report or talk through anything that you might see in violation of this code. This is for our board members, as well as for any of those who are compensated by the JAG National Organization.
Any questions that anyone has about it? I think it's fairly self-explanatory. Any questions?
Well, thank you, Tom and Janelle. Can I have a motion then to adopt the new code of conduct?
So moved.
Very moves. Is there a second? Is there a second? Thank you very much, Ed. Any further questions or discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of adopting the code of conduct, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So the code of conduct is adopted. In just a minute or two, we're going to take a 10-minute break and then come in and conclude the remainder of the board meeting. I think it's possible that Governor Parsons is going to be leaving, so I wanted to thank him and First Lady Teresa Parsons for attending and for last night, and then give you an opportunity if you wanted to address the board before you head out to the airport, Governor.
All right. Thank you, Governor. First of all, I just want to recap some of the things the speaker said earlier this morning about how important JAG is to me and the First Lady, but also how important it is to get our children an education. First of all, let me say we spend a lot of money on the back end of education through grants, through Pell Grants, through different kinds of programs and universities and colleges. But sometimes we need to do a better job on the front end, which is the kids that we're talking about in JAG. And I firmly believe in our state that we have took a very proactive stance in trying to make sure every child gets an education. Because if you don't have an education, you're not going to be able to get that job that you want, and you're not going to be able to change society as a whole. So for me, I've been blessed to have the career I have, me and the First Lady. But when we talk about a JAG student or we talk about universities, it's almost more important to me to talk about the front end of it than it is the back end of it and how we do. Both are very important, but we have to look at things differently than what we used to. The truth of it is, Mr. Moret mentioned in his talking points that a vast majority of people out there don't have degrees. And I would tell you, Missouri, probably 70% of the people in our state do not have degrees. And if that shocks you, I think if you really took evaluate and you look at most other states, you're going to find out the same thing. A lot of people start college but they don't finish, or they're in degrees that they're in jobs that never matches their degrees. So what we did in Missouri, one of the things we really did when I first became governor 4.5 years ago, is we took K through 12 community colleges, universities, and the private sector and put them at the same table to really make wholesome changes to the education system in our state. First of all, any governor will tell you that's very difficult to do because a lot of people are set in their ways, the way they do things and the way they deliver it. And when all of a sudden you got to start telling people it's okay to tell a child, a student, that you maybe not going to be going to college, but you're going to need some sort of skills to be able to benefit in the world that we live in today. And we have actually made that a priority in our state. And as governor, Mrs. Manchin said it the best too over there. She said all governors like to brag on their states. Well, if you're a governor and you don't want to brag on your state, you probably don't need to be governor. I'll tell you right now, I like the competition of who's doing the best job out there. But the reality of it is we have to be able to change to make sure that a JAG student, we're basically basing this around JAG, but it's okay if you go out of here and you get some skills and you go into the workforce. We just want to make sure you get an opportunity to have a good job. You know, if you go into the high school settings of yesterday, most everybody has never been in the workforce that are educators. They really have not been in their quote to know what it's like to work in a manufacturing company like Kawasaki, to know what it's like to work on the floor of Boeing when we're building aircrafts. And one of the things we really wanted to do is we wanted to make sure that our counselors, for sure, have that real experience of what real world's like in an emergency room, what it's like to work in a manufacturing company, and why those things are important to us to make sure a kid knows what the opportunities they get out. Again, we've made the largest investment in our state's history in two things. making sure high school kids are preparing themselves for the workforce, and the education community is also. And the other part of that is early childhood. We've made the largest investment in our state's history. Those are the things that will move the needle for all of us. I just met with CEOs, Boeing, AT&T, McDonald's, but I know they were at the table here a while ago. You know what people tell me as governor right now, and I'm going to say Governor Edwards, Governor Bryant would tell you the same thing. People say, Governor, one thing we want you to do is make sure you got some workers out there for us that we can pick up and put in the workforce. That is probably their number one priority. That is an opportunity that we've never had before, where everybody's coming together and realizing how important we need to change our ways a little bit to make sure we're preparing people for the workforce of that. So to me, these JAG students are that future workforce. And I don't know exactly where they're going to be in that workforce. Maybe some of them will be doctors. Maybe some of them will be architects, engineers, and I hope that all comes true for them. But the reality of it, most of them are going to be in the workforce out there somewhere. We just need to make sure we have a place for them. And that place is not second to anybody. And I think that's important for me to make sure that they understand that and they have our support. The other thing that was mentioned there that we're very proud of in our state, most kids, when they get out of high school, a lot of them will start college, maybe get married, maybe have children, maybe go in the workforce for multiple reasons. But, you know, they go through that stage of getting a job. At about 25, I would say most of them get a little bit more maturity to them and start to realize, I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have went to this training. I wish I would have went to a community college. In the state of Missouri right now, we started something called Fast Track, and 25 is just an arbitrary number. At 25 years old, if you want to go anywhere, community college, university, training center, to go back and get an education, we will now pay for you to be able to do that in the state of Missouri. This all happened 4.5 years ago. COVID in the middle of this. 80% of the people that participated in that project were women. 80% were the women that took advantage of that program. Over 50% of them went into healthcare, which was a blessing in disguise because of COVID-19 and everything else, so we were able to do that. So those kind of programs has launched us, and here's the brag point. So I'm going to make sure I get my brag in here for my state. Missouri is number 3 in the United States right now for apprenticeship programs. Number 3 in the United States, because I made workforce development a priority. You know, we're number 4 in the United States for manufacturing. Number 1 in the United States for doing businesses in our state. I tell you those things because those are things we've never done before, but it all generates around workforce, and workforce starts with a child. That's where workforce starts. And if we continue to make sure that we understand that, and I don't care how you get a child in school, whether it's private, whether it's public, whether it's charter, whether it's faith-based, just get them an education somewhere and get them in the workforce and make sure they know it's okay to take a job, a good job out there. And I think that's one of the things we've really focused on in our state, and one of the things we've been so successful about it. But I'll finish with this because these other governors are here, and like I say, we like to brag on our states and who we are. If you really want your state to do well, workforce development, infrastructure, 2 things that we all want, that we all live for, not Democrat, not Republican issues, and they do everyone good. If you can stay focused on things like that, but if you make too many things as a priority as a governor, and I will say why governors do it much better than the federal government. The federal government's got all these priorities out here they talk about every day, and I will tell you they don't have any priorities. At some point, you got to make a priority, and you can't make everything a priority or you have none. I think that's the difference between state government and the federal government, and why being on this board is important to me and the First Lady, to make sure that we give a kid a shot at the American dream, however they get it. We want to be a part of making sure that happens. That's why this is so important. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Governor. And thank you, First Lady, as well. And we are going to take a break, 10-minute break. When we come back, we'll have about an hour and a half to finish the rest of the agenda that includes a Yes, the president, we'll start with the president's report. But we'll be moving fairly quickly once we come back. So please be back in your seat in 10 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good job. Well.
Oh, okay.
It would be an experience.
Yeah, it would be better to do it in that small. We were the only place open in our career. Didn't need a top in there. Whatever. You don't. We need a break. It's too many. Really good. Sorry.
Well, thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Good seeing you. See you.
All right, I'll be back.
Sitting down. This is one of the reasons why. We really think that it is. So everybody knows. There's no question that you hear him speak.
Everybody, if we could reconvene. I've never seen a 10-minute break ever work, actually. Got to try. Laura, can you ask somebody to go out and get some board members, please? Got to get going.
I think we need our sergeant at arms to go round everybody up.
All right. Where's the state police when you need them?
Okay, if everyone could please have their seats, we're going to resume our meeting. We've got about an hour and a half to complete the agenda, including an executive session. That's what I was trying to think of a while ago.
Oh, okay. All right, well, we're going to remain well preserved with all this cold air, but so we've ordered in fireplaces and flamethrowers and other devices. Anna decided maybe hot tea would be at least the near-term solution, so.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started with a report from the president and the executive vice president and chief operating officer around the state of the organization and the plan of work and the progress that we've made on that plan of work since it was adopted in December. And obviously the 4 strategic priorities that were also adopted at that time. And rather than comment too much on it, I'm going to ask Janelle and Ken to take over the discussion and present the report.
Good. Bobby is bringing up the report. You have it. We really are pressed for time now, so we're going to do this fairly quickly. I'm confident you've all gone through the PowerPoint. You've heard a lot of these points both last night and this morning. But I will draw your attention to that wonderful photograph of the birthing papers being signed for Jobs for America's graduates. There's about 10 stories around that, but to the vice president's credit, they realized a bipartisan moment when they saw it. So they actually invited a White House lawn signing ceremony, which led to the funding that took us to 4 states outside of Delaware and really was the difference when we launched the program. I'll only make the last point that a year later, the Reagan-Bush ticket defeated the Carter-Mondale ticket. Vice President Bush, to his credit, joined the national board on day 1 and hosted us in the White House for the meeting. And the man he had beaten 6 months before came to the meeting. And Vice President Mondale was there to support the creation of this board, and this organization. So anyway, wonderful bipartisan stories that I wanted you to kind of have for some future reference. We are going to do this fairly quickly. So if we go to the next slide, Bobby, you've heard the stories. Amazingly enough, in the mess our schools and our young people are in, we've gotten some of the best results in our history again. And as I said last night, that's not us. That's not the people that are here at this event. It is the people you'll see at lunch. The 75 or so job specialists who are here with about 180 of our student leaders. And they and those young people have done just truly remarkable work. Looks like we'll have one of our best growths probably between 7,000 to 9,000, depending on how many schools get opened in January in the course of this year. So we'll be up right around 75,000 young people and well in excess of 1,500 locations in 39 states. We've had a very resetting of I'd like to believe a wonderfully enhanced relationship with our state affiliates. As you know, from back in June, we approved a new affiliation fee structure, essentially a flat fee of $55,000, and to be transitioned over 3 years, those that are coming down and those that are going up. We are working on a new affiliation agreement to further specify the roles and responsibilities of both parties, and we'll have that for you here in 2 or 3 months. And lots of focus, as you heard, that Janelle led in developing both our plan of work for this year, consistent with the goals set by you back in December, and also the different approach we're taking to the budget to provide some more flexibility. We had this wonderful event last night. We held the largest training seminar. This is our biggest gathering of staff and management every year. We had 640 in Las Vegas that Governor Sisolak on our board was kind enough to come and speak to. It was actually longer than usual. It was 4 days of intensive sharing of best practices, the rollout of new tools and tactics and techniques to help our staff deal with these issues that we're seeing so hard on the front lines. We obviously, as part of our new relationship with the affiliates, added 2 members of this board, selected and recommended by the affiliates who have been on board, and again with that new affiliation agreement. Let me go on to the next slide about the challenges here ahead. You've heard this, but it bears repeating. I mean, I've been at this a long time, right? We built Job for Delaware graduates because of student learning loss, student disengagement, lousy scores coming out of schools, young people that weren't ready for work. The biggest employer in Delaware said, we're out of here. Our people don't want their kids to go to these schools. We can't find workers that can read, write, talk, and show up for work on time. I mean, I was in those meetings. I think the situation in many cases is worse in several ways. It's more intractable. These mental health issues that these young people are facing, you heard me talk about last night, these are really hard to fix. These are not simple learning of English and math. And the decline in attendance, when I was talking to Sharon Robinson sitting on the Kentucky State School Board, I said, what are the big issues coming? She said, it's attendance. They're not showing up. You heard Governor Edwards say that we can't find. I mean, it's millions of young people that are just disengaged, or if they do show up, it's every other day or maybe twice a week. So it is attendance, it's disengagement, it's learning loss, it's mental health. And then 800,000 teachers left the profession in 1 year. Think about it. It takes 4 years and a minimum to build a teacher. It doesn't work. The math is all on the wrong side here. There's just no supply of teachers to replace that. And then, as I mentioned, thousands of schools, principals and guidance counselors and assistant principals and the folks that make the system run have left as well. The other thing that I guess is really important to hear is the number of fights in the schools by a factor of 3 to 5 are up. The immaturity of young people that were out of social interaction for 2 years. But when I was in with the governor of the Virgin Islands, and I asked the students what was going on, and to the credit of the commissioners that were there with me, and we turned off the TV cameras, and they said there'd been too many fights and made them scared sometimes to come to school. And we've heard that across the country. So these are lots of issues. To repeat Sharon, and then correct me if this is not right. She says the other thing is teachers don't want to go in the hallways because they don't want to get involved in a fight to try to break it up, because then they could get into all kinds of legal issues. So it kind of adds to the sense of concern in too many schools. So with all of that, we've also got a problem like everybody else finding people. You heard me say on average, our folks are on the front line, or salary is about a $42,000 average. It's as low as $28,000 in Mississippi. So the only way that works is to hire retired teachers and add it to their pension to make it work. And now it's much higher in some of the more expensive cost of living states. But we cannot compete in a lot of places. And what's worse is with all those teachers leaving, and when the principal walks down the hallway wondering what to do to replace them, there walks our specialist past their eyes. And they go, here's the opportunity. I'll offer you more money with better benefits, and we'll give you 10 weeks off in the summer. Well, what's a young man or woman with a family going to say to that? Better benefits, more money, and some time off. So we're losing people. Good news is they're staying in the system. They're working with kids. Bad news is it's harder to retain them. It's running 20-30% turnover rates, which we've never had before. No surprise. Point is when we're not opening some schools because you can't find the kind of quality people that we're looking for. So those are all big issues. We're also finding a little hard to grow because states are reluctant to spend what they think is one-time federal money on longer term programs. We've got to figure out how to crack that code. We're beginning to get it cracked. Some in a couple of places in Kansas City, our Kansas program reports that they are using these federal ESSER funds to put into place in 11 schools. And we're finding some more of that kinds of commitments that are beginning to happen. So we've got to do something to respond to it. If we go to the next slide, we're doing a lot more of our trauma-informed training, which is another way to say we're helping our frontline people to hopefully be better skilled and more understanding of what these mental health issues are and how to most effectively work with them. And we're finding our staff really appreciates that on the front lines. We're providing more tools, more tactics. We're providing much more online and in-person training. We're back to large-scale in-person training again across the country. We're looking at any other options for EAP programs, both for the employees of organizations that carry out JAG, where they might not have an assistance program. And we're just continuing to look, and we'll welcome any ideas of how we can best help the folks at hand. We are greatly expanding the engagement of our career association, which you're about to see at lunch, finding more ways to involve more young people in more activities, to give them a sense of hope, a sense of being part of something, a sense of opportunity. And so we're going to push very hard to keep growing our career association, both in terms of the intensity of activity, but also to make sure each one of our schools has a JAG Career Association chapter in it. We're also looking for different ways to help here with finding people. We're talking to companies about retirees that could be converted into job specialists. We're looking at how do you capture some of those teachers that are leaving who want to stay working with young people, but not every 42 minutes having 40 more kids. And not have and feel a sense of disconnection. Whereas perhaps as part of the JAG family, we can recapture those folks and keep them focused on helping young people. We're also getting some people from youth serving agencies like government agencies that have youth components that are looking for a different experience. Anyway, we're looking at every avenue that we can come up with, just like all the rest of you are. I think with that, let me turn this over to Janelle to talk about what we're looking for ahead as we look for 2023, which is year 2 of our 3-year set of strategic goals. And also that will lead us into a quick review of the budget.
Thanks, Ken. And I think Johnny Taylor, you have your hand raised.
I do. Ken, just a quick question to underscore the mental health challenges. If you recall, about maybe a year or so ago, we offered to underwrite and access to a EAP type, higher level EAP programming through SHRM. Are we going to roll that out again to see if we get a better uptake? Because I understand we didn't get the kind of uptake that we thought we would.
Well, it was to be honest, it was not expected, but when we offered it, we found schools and others all of a sudden said, well, my gosh, we should have it. So it actually prompted the creation of or gaining access to existing programs.
Okay.
The second message was a lot of our people didn't know that there was one.
Right.
And then when we said, well, gosh, here's one that SHRM is willing to help us with, God bless you. Their school administrators said, well, we already have one. Oh, I didn't know that. So in many ways, the mission was accomplished. That said, two things. One, if you're willing to, we'd love to be able to offer it because there are circumstances with a range of organizations that carry out JAG where they don't have it. The second one we'd love to find is one that could be useful for teenagers.
Yes.
Because we need to help our young people have another avenue besides their job specialist. So if there's any ideas of call-in centers for those with trained to help with teenage issues of all kinds, we'd love to have a sort of, if you will, the default option that young people could do. Okay.
We'll support that. Yes.
Terrific. Thanks, Johnny.
Thank you, Johnny. So in interest of time, I'm going to talk a little bit about 2022 progress, but then hint at 2023, because I know after this report, we go into the plan of work. So I will try and merge those two in interest of time. So on the next slide, this is a reminder of our Youth Opportunities and Outcomes 2024. If you were at the event last night, you heard me highlight those 4 priorities. You heard Stephen Murray talk about Strata's North Star. This is really JAG's North Star, aligning our national team, our affiliate leaders, to our specialists, and all the way to our students. So our 4 priorities are on the left. I want to highlight the goals, because while we have these priorities that are guiding our actions, we need to make sure that we're driving towards something. 150,000 young people served, a net promoter score of 70 plus, 90% of our JAG programs have the National Career Association, and a connectivity rate of 95% or better. And what that connectivity rate means, we have always measured an unable to contact rate internally. Our goal has been less than 5% of our young people at the end of follow-up we are unable to contact. Being a trauma-informed organization, we wanted to focus on asset-based language. We wanted to celebrate our connectivity, and we also wanted to promote that and highlight that to support our affiliates. When you measure something externally, that's when opportunities come out to perhaps provide better technical assistance and training to make sure that specialists receive that support, that time, that capability in order to truly follow up with young people as a service. So our goal is, and we flipped it, 95% connectivity rate. On the next slide, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the activities within these priorities. So invest in our network. We have gone very deep in both in-person and virtual training. We had our first in-person national training seminar in a long time, which was a huge success. Last year, you may remember, we redid the JAG model application. Tons of new tools, resources, and training handbooks for specialists. So that is rolling out across our national network. And we began the launch of a tech strategy for the first time in our history. And when you think about a 42-year-old organization with 75,000 young people, 1,500 specialists, a national team that has grown, and 2 new learning management systems, our legacy data system, ENDMS, and then transitioning to Salesforce, that's a lot. That's a lot of technology. That's a lot of networks, whether informal or formal. So we had to scope out and really say, how do we align all of our technology platforms and make it more efficient and effective to make sure that we're moving towards these goals? That was a very new process, I think, for all of us. We learned a lot. We learned about causal loops, and now we're going to be working towards implementing that tech strategy in 2023. A little bit about Salesforce. Where we're at with this is we have worked with our affiliates, and we have now defined a journey map for the next phase of this. So our current Salesforce platform supports entry of data for our young people. What we've always done, it's how we get our graduation rates, how we get our employment rates. But now we are layering on CRM and donor management capabilities to get to those numbers that we know are in there and be able to report to our partners, to our affiliates in a more cohesive manner, which allows for better data analysis, which can then inform training and technical assistance. This is a really exciting piece. You've heard me talk about it before, and I think we can test our hypothesis that if employers spend more time with our young people, they are going to see better outcomes in terms of hiring, in terms of retention, in terms of wages. So this is the platform that we're building to be able to access that data in ways that can support everyone involved with JAG. On the next slide, you'll see more about our investing in our network. Thank you tremendously to our partners at Boeing, to our partners at SHRM, to our partners at Synchrony for spending time with us. We are working with top-notch leaders that have developed this training for executives globally, and they are now taking that content, working with our team, and helping us to bring that out for both nonprofits and public agencies. And it's been amazing. They're having a lot of fun doing this. They're ready and willing to do it more of it in 2023. And this is not just focused on this is not the training that we do with our specialists, but this is also helping to really develop leadership skills for our affiliates who have asked for that in our U24 priorities. You can see some wonderful statistics on this slide, feedback from our affiliates. The staff recruitment, development, and retention panel was one of our most highly attended events, most highly rated, and this just underscores some of the struggles that our affiliates are facing in terms of recruiting specialists at this time as we continue to grow.
In effect, Boeing and Synchrony have spent millions to build these programs and then stress tested them. And then they're giving them to us. So, and that means the talent. So these are trainers from Boeing and from Synchrony that are bringing this to bear, and they're modifying it, as Janelle said, to fit. So we're just so grateful to Mike D'Ambrose and to DJ Casto on this board for making those kinds of commitments to us, and got a lot of participation by our state affiliates.
On the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about increased outcomes through enhanced services. So the JAG Advantage rolled out in 2018 after 10 years of practice in IJAG and clear outcomes. So project-based learning, trauma-informed care, and employer engagement, bringing all three of those together to really support the development of our young people and increase their outcomes. And this means on that employer engagement piece, focusing on credentials, increased certifications, and dual enrollment opportunities. While young people are under our watch, how can we ensure that they are accessing the training that will lead to the jobs of the future today? And then with this new data system, how are we tracking their wages and seeing how these increased services are leading to better outcomes for them? You'll see that we're going back to accreditation. We had a couple of years of virtual. We now have had 13 state affiliates on the new sequence, and we will continue our accreditation process in 2023. And with that, we are supporting affiliates in more targeted manners. We, with U24, established criteria for high capacity affiliates, growing affiliates, and emerging affiliates. And this is based on 12 standards that the affiliate said, these are the priorities we want to see JAG affiliate deliver services on. So based on where they are at objectively with that data against 12 priorities, we will identify them on which ranking they're at through the accreditation process, and that will therefore in turn the technical assistance that we will provide to help affiliates get from emerging to growing and growing to high capacity. On the next slide, tell the JAG story. You've heard a lot about this. I think last night was a great example of how we are working on this piece, but it's also marketing, it's also communications. So we've had some major wins. We continue to see some of those major wins in USA Today. I had the chance to be interviewed by Bloomberg Radio. That you got about 5 minutes notice on that, but I think it went well. And we are working on a lot more for next year. Our friend Sam Amsterdam is helping to secure a lot more of these interviews and opportunities, not just for the JAG national team, but for specialists, for our affiliate leaders. And you know this is momentum that builds upon itself. So once you get one, once you get two, then other news media start picking it up. So we're really excited about that. And I think, Ken, our most recent one in Forbes was picked up by Apple News.
Yes. I know you've all seen it, and I hope you'll keep circulating it. The line is, it's the nation's premier program. Having Forbes say that is just a wonderful endorsement. And, both the governors have agreed to do another round of op-eds, Republican, Democrat. We've got 2 chief state school officers that have agreed to do one that will take it from the education perspective, and Mike DeAmbrose from Boeing. And we'll be looking for the right leader from another different industry company to do an op-ed looking at how young people are well prepared when they come to work for those employers. So we will be a bit of a campaign here, especially in the first half of the year, when legislatures and school boards and workforce boards are making decisions about funding, and many companies are making decisions. So we want to be as visible as we can in each of those audiences in the national media.
Absolutely. On the next slide, serve more young people. So we know that JAG is needed now more than ever. There's a lot of need out there. So the way that we approached it in 22 is the best growth that we can see is by increasing the number of young people who are already on our roster. So our goal minimum is at least 35 young people on a specialist roster. And we had some affiliates that needed some support to do so. So our goal for this year was to get it to 35, which we did. That is where you can see a lot of opportunity for growth in 2023. And now we have a new goal to get that to 40. It's much easier to work with our already established programs, our already trained specialists, and look at growth that way. In the near term, Ken shared we'll see some growth. I think we're going to hit our goal of 16% growth year over year, which was our goal for 2022. In 2023, we want to get to 85,000. When you think about a goal of 150,000 young people, that means we have a very steep hill to climb. So we're looking at innovative growth. We're talking to organizations like Boys and Girls Club. The president was here last night. We're establishing a JAG program in the greater Southwest Michigan Boys and Girls Club. We're talking with organizations like Stride, who have served tens of thousands of young people virtually. Now that we have this virtual platform, we can look at ways that we can take our already successful model on the jobs piece, which most organizations in the space got the education piece down, the engagement piece down, but they don't necessarily have the jobs piece down. We do. So we see a lot of areas for collaboration. And if we land 1 or 2 of those, then we can see that exponential growth that we strive to achieve.
Brianna and her team in Indiana is launching the test of the relationship with Stride, which has 200,000 students in charter schools that are all virtual in 35 states. So to Janelle's point, that could be a lot of leverage because they've got 5,000 teachers on the payroll that provide this, and the instruction has to be at least as good as what you would get in a physical campus. So our appreciation to the Indiana team for working on it. I had a long call with their team. You and I will discuss a little later, and they're excited about it. And they're already thinking in the terms we want them to about how can we do more of it.
So to wrap up the goals, I talked about 85,000 is our goal for 2023. For that connectivity rate, our ultimate goal is 95%. Our goal for 23 is 93%. Our goal for this year, 22, was 91.5%. We anticipate we'll get there, but this is lagging data because our class of 2022 outcomes aren't going to be available, of course, until June 2023. But how we're seeing the numbers come out, we feel pretty confident that we're going to get there. And then for our NPS score, for those, Richard and I have talked about this, but NPS scores are very difficult to get high numbers because you only, on a 10-point scale, you can only count the 9s and 10s, and then 0 through 6 are negatives. And then 7 and 8s you throw out. Our goal for 22 is establish a baseline, and we are just under 50. And then our goal for 23 is to get to that 50 mark. It's been an interesting process because we did our baseline at the beginning of the school year. We're starting with specialists and students, people in the JAG network. How do you rank JAG? Would you recommend it to others? And we are going to do that again at the end of the school year. And we'll be really interested to see how our students' numbers we anticipate will increase because they'll have had more time with us in the program. So that wraps up our 2022 plan of work activities, and then does some wave tops for where we're going in 23. Any questions so far?
Hey, Janelle.
Yeah.
Just a question. As you increase the average size, does the quality drop? You know, so the concern is as you're trying to grow, you know, there's less touch. The relationship between the specialist and the student is so critical. We all know that and hear that. Are you concerned about the drop off in the effectiveness if you grow that average size too large?
So we have affiliates like Louisiana, based on their Department of Education requirements, they have to have at least 60 kids in the program. And they have not seen a decline in their outcomes. And I know other affiliates they naturally increased these numbers before we said we're going to actually start tracking this and encourage you to increase that. But I would ask Brianna and Lori, do you have feedback on that from your experiences?
Sure. Yeah, I think that's a really important question. I know, I mean, in our state, and I'm sure others too, the higher the number is much easier with a more veteran specialist, right? So they really understand the program. They understand how deep each student needs that connection. We tend to put a lot of our training efforts on those newer specialists so that if they're working with a large number of students, they feel truly supported so that then they can support the students in turn. But it is definitely more difficult, you know, to do that. But I think it again gives our schools a greater sense of our connection on how we can help them by serving more kids.
I'd echo that, Brianna, and say more. It's a staggering. We start out with about 35 young people to a new freshman, if you will, specialist. And as they become skilled up with the support of the national organization and state affiliate training, then they demonstrate that they can handle more students. And when they're able to do that, we add more. In Iowa, our goal is to get to 60 students per specialist and know that we have that cadence of growth over time. But the support of a solid national training program really matters.
One last story. I was with all the specialists from the Virgin Islands a couple of years ago here at a meeting, and a couple of them were saying, oh, we're at 35, 38, it's too much. The one who had the highest results most consistently was working with 70. So that argument didn't play. Now, there was it is hard, and you got to have your tactics out. How do you work with these group of young people? And bear in mind that they've got 50 or 60 in the school building they're working with. And if they've got some seniors from last year, they might have 20 or 30 more that they're tracking and helping them in college and in jobs. It's a job and it's a balancing act, and it is all those things. But 40 years later, we know consistently there's no different results at 60 than there is at 40 if you've got the right specialist with enough experience and enough tools. The other beauty of this is you can add 5 more students at no more cost, the same specialist, which then drives down the cost per participant, which many of our funders measure. So it accomplishes a couple missions at the same time. And it is, as Janelle said, the quickest, easiest way to growth. If you could add 20 more students to our 1,500 programs, run the math with us. You know, we're a long ways towards getting there.
And I think, not to beat this horse too much, we don't have the largest number of programs in Louisiana, but we reach the most students. And we do it because of the number of students per program. And we have routinely met all of the goals of JAG. So it is a way to move forward and grow the national program.
So we'll give the governor a chance to brag. He's got almost 9,400 students in his 165 schools. So it is the largest JAG organization in the country in terms of students served.
Yeah,
I'll do the bragging.
that's my bragging for today. Other governors claim to have more programs than they do, but we reach the most students. And we meet all of our performance objectives.
You love competition. It's a wonderful thing.
Well, and the affiliates do a great job, I think, of being strategic about the grades that young people are in. So if you have all seniors, then that means that specialist has a huge roster to follow up with, plus an incoming full roster of seniors. And Tennessee manages to do that year over year. So congratulations, John Dwyer and the Tennessee team and John Steele. But we do see a lot of mixtures of grades, 9 through 12. All right, moving right along to the budget, keeping track of time. So you've heard this, we have deep concerns about the economy and impacts on JAG. Although if you look at the market yesterday, I mean, it's a roller coaster. So we're just preparing for every scenario, which is why we have, for the first time in our history, a 2-tiered budget. So the first tier, if you're in the next slide, you can see that it's a flat budget. It's a 3% increase, but when you take into account inflation, it's really actually less spending power. But it invests in the most critical aspects of U24, our strategic goals, and what we want to accomplish in 2023, including that increased technical assistance, technology strategy supports, and serving more young people. It also includes some of our contractors moving to full-time status who have become instrumental members of the JAG national team and some of our services. The tier 2 stretch budget is about $1 million more. And this is what we want to, if we can get the funding for it, and we have people who are interested, this is what we will shoot for the stars in terms of our 2023 goals. This would mean moving more rapidly on some of our technology investments. This would mean moving forward with some more technical assistance and training. This would mean more activities for the National Career Association and the young people who are in it. I would love to bring some of those officers with me in meetings, and I know Ken would as well. So those are some of the elements that we would include should we raise the funding to do so. And we talked with the executive committee at length about this, with external advisors on this, and everyone at the time when we started developing this in Q3, they said that we believe this is the right way to do it. And this is also how we're looking at it.
We won't pull the trigger on that until we raise the money. And then we'll go back to the executive committee and say, we think we've raised the money, here it is, this is what we want to do with it. So they will help guide us here on those final decisions.
And timing with the spring board meeting should pretty much align in terms of where we're at, so we can make a recommendation. On the next slide, Tom talked about our governance package. A couple things I want to highlight. So with the bylaws that were passed at the June board meeting, there's a different approach for our executive committee. This, for the first time, and this is following the gold standards, this would mean that the chair recommends members of the executive committee, and then the board would appoint them. So we will move forward with that as we work with the executive committee on when we start implementing that approach and that timeline after the Governor Reynolds begins her chairmanship. And I wanted to also highlight that with the nominating committee, the executive committee discussed this at length, that this is for board members, not for committees. So to support that, we were thinking about it, and it would just become a lot of process and structure that we probably don't have the capacity to do well right now. So the nominating committee will nominate directors, but not committee members. Wanted to make sure that was clear. Any questions on anything I just shared? Plan of work, budget, governance package highlights?
I think this is the Senator Carper comment. Find out what works and do more of it.
Nicole,
it's the other way to summarize it, Nicole.
Thank you, Ken. Janelle, if I can, I would like to just touch base on the technology piece of this. As a president of JDG, when I stepped into the office 8 years ago, we were severely lacking technology. Today, I am very, very happy with where we're moving with the technology for our other affiliates as well as Delaware. For everybody that's sitting around this table, we all know technology leaves our organizations to be effective and efficient when we have the right tools. Now, what that equals always is the cost to it. And so we're constantly building. In each one of your organizations, you are constantly putting money towards technology. I'm watching you shake your head because, right, you couldn't do your job without having the right tools to be able to do the accounting processes that are needed. And so we need to have that same level of technology with JAG. So while we're still developing that, we're still a long way from having to do that. So as you are raising money, I think it is imperative that this committee, this board, pays attention to the fact that we need the infrastructure. So we do need the dollars. So as grants are being written to be able to add more kids to the schools, I have news for everybody. Kids are getting added anyway. It doesn't matter. The schools are asking us to step up. They want us to deliver. But in order for us to tell the story of how we're delivering, we need that tool. We need that technology. And we can't continue to substitute our teachers to get that technology in, to get that information in to our technology. It needs to be more of a systematic approach. And so that comes with us raising the money for the funding to promote that type of infrastructure. So as you are moving forward, it's probably the one area I will be extremely putting my comments to the table on, because I think that this is somewhere that we cannot stand down on, right? You should be able to reach into one database and be able to put out the information and no longer do it on Excel spreadsheets or Google documents. It should be able to be something that's in our system. So thank you. And also thank you very much for hearing us, because I know that this has been a work in progress and many nights that we've had this conversation. So thank you.
Thank you for bringing that up too, because we do have plans. We have, and we'll hear more about this when we talk about the development plan, but there's a proposal that we have, or a concept in with the Ballmer Foundation, the Ballmer Fund, Steve Ballmer money, co-founder of Microsoft, $2 million to support our technology strategy over the next 3 years. And I'm working closely with the executive director of their tech portfolio. When we showed him our journey map from the pre-technology strategy part to just figure out how we start attacking this, he said, this is great. And this is actually what we're looking at for our own foundation. And I was like, great, well, you could fund yours and ours at the same time. So if anyone has relationships with the Ballmer funds, relationships, like really close relationships with CIOs or CTOs. I know Jan and I are actively looking for thought partners, but also importantly, funders in this work. And we have an ask that is ready to go, and we can really, again, catapult this thing if we get that funding.
We will be discontinuing, trying to make more efficient. By the end of September next year, we will have a single data system. We've been transitioning from the two, with the Salesforce system being the one that we've moved 2/3 of our, almost 3/4 of our affiliates to. We will complete that process. And while we're enhancing the Salesforce system, we're making sure we're getting everybody onto the single system. And you will see in our proposed budget that it will show a reduction in the other system in favor of the continued investment in the Salesforce system.
Can I ask you one question about that?
Sure.
We're going to be able to still access the history that's in the old system?
Yes. Short answer is yes. We're going to put it on a flash drive and put it in your pocket, so we know exactly where it is.
So Ken, so what I'm hearing is not only are we talking about funding, but we're also talking about a recruitment for this board from somebody that has technology experience that can also add maybe some free services conversation, and certainly the ability to help us continue to grow in the technology world.
Our friend Karen Coker, of course, from Microsoft, who couldn't be here, but she's on the case with us, and we're looking for other sources just to reinforce. We're looking for help, so all sources would be welcomed.
Ken, I have a strange question. Who is our competition? And when I say competition, not that we're competing against them, but who else does what we do?
I don't believe, honestly, anybody outdoes what we do. Organizations operate in the schools and offer different kinds of services. Avid, for example, that helps more young people go on to college. We have communities in schools. We're actually housed in one in North Carolina, so we're a part of it. They tend to serve lots of kids across a broad spectrum. In the space where we're focused on the lowest performing 40%, and where we're doing both graduation and employment and college outcomes, I don't know anybody.
I don't know anybody either. So what are we missing? I mean, I think to make that connect, people should be knocking on our doors to give us, support, technology, whatever. What are we missing that's not making that link?
So we're getting, as Janelle said, we're beginning to get more interest, like the Balmer folks, and we're hopefully Microsoft and others. But it's fair to say we still have this terrible, they just don't know us. They don't even know we're here. And so finding more ways to raise the visibility and raise the voice to that end. I will say two other really happy notes. The superintendent in Omaha, having seen the success in a school, now says, I want to put it in all 20 of my high schools and all of my middle schools. Well, that's the kind of a reaction we've been looking for. And we haven't seen, Governor Edwards came onto it early on and said, we're at 60, whatever we were, 9 schools. We're going to double or we're going to triple that along the way, as you've done in the islands and as Governor Reynolds and others have done. But we need more of those kinds of, so it's two fronts. One, how do we get more help with technology and money on the one hand? And how do we get more people to say, let's do a lot more of JAG?
So one more thing, I noticed, I looked at where we are, and it's more Midwest, West, South a little bit. We have a lot of governors on our boards. Why don't we have a mayoral strategy? Because mayors are really dealing with urban issues in terms of dropout rates, disenfranchised youth, crime. They're the ones that are really looking for those answers. Have we ever thought about a strategy where we go to a more base level of where people are really feeling that pain? And they connect us to people. Because those companies in those cities want that support.
No, it's good. Great point. The mayor of Columbia, South Carolina, happens to be somebody who knew JAG, got elected mayor and decided we're going to put in every school in Columbia, South Carolina, to your point. We're going to make a run on the new mayor of Los Angeles, who's just taking over. You always kind of like them when they're new because they're looking to do something new. But I love the idea of looking for the right leadership mayor or two to join the board. I think that would be perfect. And we have Anna Tovar was mayor of Tolleson before she became the commissioner of the corporate commission. So we actually had a small city mayor out talking to the smaller city mayors about JAG.
Because in today's world, $6 million is not a lot of money.
Yes, sir.
No. And I would say too that it's about strategic marketing and strategic communications. Because if we go governor to governor to governor to governor, there's just no capacity to do that. And there's a lot of noise out there. There's a lot of people, I would say, who are saying that they're doing what we're doing, but they're not, and we're doing it better. And it's about having more laser focused marketing and branding that associates JAG as part of the solution to the problem that we're facing. And Governor, we did have a director of communications and marketing job opening, but we pulled that in favor of a new director of development, recognizing some of these headwinds that we're facing. So that is why we have this 2-tier budget. And with the support of I hope of this board, we can really generate some new revenue. We can diversify our revenue streams. And when we hit that tier 2, then we can get to that director of communications and marketing and give them some of these assignments. But I think a lot of it is that communication aspect, Governor.
Well, lastly, I'd just like to mention that we have 150,000 of the greatest communicators every year. I mean, between their Snapchat and everything else, they're distracted by it. They're great at spreading the word.
We shouldn't think of this though as a $6 million organization. It's a $100+ million organization when you think of the budgets of all the affiliates, some of which are funded through the efforts of the national organization.
But yes, and the short answer is we should be attracting a lot more money at every level. Because we've got such a wonderful case. And you got 40 years. It's not, we've got the data. We just need to get it in front of people, both individually, directly, and then, as Janelle says, by different forms of communications and branding. I know we're up against a real wall here, so maybe let me just quickly finish up, and then we will move to action on the plan of work, and then to the executive session. If you go to the next slide, just a quick look over the horizon. 2 big things. We anticipate the Congress will reauthorize the Workforce Investment Opportunity Act next year. Now, they've said that 4 years in a row, mind you, but nonetheless, that sounds like it might get done. Scott Sanders, who serves on this board and is the executive director of all of the commissioners of labor and secretaries of labor across the country. He'd been at this for a long time, and we'd like to believe that it may move next year for all the workforce issues we've just seen. We've got some real attention from the White House and from both houses of the Congress that are responsible for this, and on both sides of the aisle, they like our ideas, having had a lot of experience in this arena. I think we're going to have some important influence. I think it's going to be a legislation that will make it easier to work with what is often a difficult source of funding. So we're excited about that. We have put a proposition out that I hope you're familiar with, but let me explain why we keep pushing it. It's essentially for $2 billion, which I used to think was a lot of money. I think they spill that before breakfast here because but for $2 billion over 2 years, we could put 1 million more people, young people, into the labor market. That's a hell of a deal. I mean, who wouldn't take that deal, right? And whether we do it by competition, whether it's direct funding, we've given all kinds of options. But what we like about it is it shows this organization's thinking big. It shows that we've got 40 years of experience and we know it can be done. We know it can be done. And we know who can do it. And yes, there's other organizations, Job Corps, Urban League, the community schools, others. But so long as it's an employment-focused outcome, we win. Our state affiliates, if they choose to pursue it, will be able to, we think, win that money. But the important point is it shows the kind of thinking. It's not small, it's big scale. And it obviously helps to deal with the issues of young people on the one hand and the needs of employers on the other. So we're getting lots of interest in it. Brent Parton with us last night, the Assistant Secretary for Employment and Training, whispered to me, I think we're getting some real interest, Ken, in this concept. So we'll see. And we'll be pursuing it. Last thing I wanted to just highlight on the last slide, there's some events coming up next year. We'd love to have you come to the Career Development Conference with 700 young people. I promise you it'll be a life-changing experience. So come join us in Orlando, be part of those competitions, be part of the engagement. We need lots of people to come and be judges at those competitions. It's a lot of young people and a lot of competitions. We're going to have, and that'll be in April 20 to 22 in Orlando, and then the following year in St. Louis. We'll have what I believe will be our largest national training seminar, again, 750 staff in Louisville in July. And we will, of course, have our end of year meetings in 2023 here at this hotel, which, as you may recall, we had to cancel 2 years in a row and agreed to come once we got past the code issues. So those are the major events with the exception, of course, of our spring board meeting. We hope to get some dates out to you to choose from shortly, from Governor Reynolds' office, and we will be in Des Moines. And I believe Lori, John Deere and others are looking to host us when we're there. So. Great. So that, Mr. Chairman, is our report, and we can then move, if you're up for it, into action on the plan of work.
Yeah, let's go ahead and see if there's any more discussion on the report of the president and executive vice president. And if not, I'll entertain a motion to accept the reports.
So moved.
And John and Ed, thank you very much. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of adopting the reports, please say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
All right, so the report is accepted, and now quickly, please, the plan of work for 2023. We've got no more than about 50 minutes or so left. So we've got to move a little quickly, and I apologize for getting behind.
I guess, Janelle, we've summarized your plan of work, but I'll let Janelle take this if any of you got questions on it.
Sorry, I just got distracted because it looks like we got approval of our $300,000 AT&T grant.
Yay!
Nice work, Nikki.
Very good.
Go ahead and get distracted again.
Yay, yay.
Thank you, Stephanie, for all you've done for us.
Of course.
All right,
Gold star in your report card again, Stephanie.
it's time for a road trip. Any further discussion or questions about the plan of work for 2023? Okay, if there are not, then I will accept the motion, entertain a motion to.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, the 2023 plan of work is hereby approved. We are going to quickly transition into an executive committee meeting. Janelle and Ken, I would ask that you please stay. If you're not a board member, or if you're not representing a board member,